Yun-Chi sits across from Dian-Jiuzhi, the boundless divine sun, and sees the sharp edge hidden behind those cultured eyes. A man shaped by trampling, not conquest. When the ancestral Kilin god is drawn away, and a heaven-breaker divine daughter barely escapes, the fog of sinking Dream Valley thickens with secrets that don't stay buried. Like and subscribe to see which mask cracks first. Chi and Dian-Jiuzhi sat opposite each other. Appearance-wise, Dian-Jiuzhi, the boundless divine sun, looked just as handsome and cultured as the rumors said he was. He utterly lacked the pressure of the strongest divine son of all kingdoms of God, much less the fiery presence of a conqueror like his father. Still, Yun-Chi could capture a sharp but well-hidden edge inside his eyes. Dian-Jiuzhi was a man who grew up being trampled on after all. Yun-Chi did not believe for a second that he, on the inside, was a humble gentleman who could let bygones be bygones and treat those around him with magnanimity and kindness. Well met, Brother Yuan. I understand that this visit is quite abrupt. I hope you won't fault me for it. Everyone knows that Dian-Jiuzhi was the strongest divine son, but he carried himself with incredible politeness and modesty. If he was any other Dreamweaver prince, he would be astonished beyond words and even panicking right now. Yun-Chi responded smilingly, "Of course not, divine son Jiuzhi. Your reputation is such that even I have heard of you from a young age. But of course, I never dared to dream that I would one day make your acquaintance. Forget faulting you. The fact that you would pay this humble one a visit in person fills me with boundless honor. Besides, I haven't yet felt any belonging toward my identity as Meng Jianyuan, so just address me as Yun-Chi, divine son Jiuzhi." Dian-Jiuzhi nodded without hesitation. "Very well, Brother Yun. The title of divine son is but a false reputation lauded by the masses anyway. Since I am over 3,000 years older than you, if you don't mind, just address me as older brother Dian when we are in private." Yun-Chi nodded smilingly. "So what is the purpose of your visit, older brother Dian?" Dian-Jiuzhi looked surprised for an instant before he burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha! In the past, everyone I spoke to would think that I am being courteous or act even meeker than before. In the end, they all still address me as divine son. You really are an incredible person, Brother Yun. I'm glad to learn that my choice to make your acquaintance was beyond correct." Yun-Chi's expression remained unchanged. "It's true that you wish to make my acquaintance, but even more than that, you want to know why Senior Sword Fairy allowed me to call her aunt, don't you?" Dian-Jiuzhi's smile stiffened, and he met Yun-Chi's calm, sincere, and pure eyes for a moment. Then he let out a chuckle and a small sigh. "This is our first proper meeting, and yet you are able to see through me so utterly already. More than that, you did not hesitate to speak the truth without any fanfare. I did not think that someone like you actually existed until today. What a wonder! You flatter me, Brother Dian." Yun-Chi withdrew his gaze and looked down at his teacup. He did not seem moved by Dian-Jiuzhi's half-praise and half-exclamation of surprise at all. "You are famous for your status as the greatest divine son of all the kingdoms of God. Yes, but you are even more famous for your devotion to the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter, Xianxia, a love that has not changed even a little despite thousands of years. Senior Sword Fairy is the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter's aunt, her master in the way of the sword and her protector. Besides her and her alone, she never gave anyone special treatment, until recently. Not only did she allow me to call her aunt, she even announced that I am under her protection." He looked up and met Dian-Jiuzhi's eyes once more. "Therefore, it is not I who is insightful here. It is only natural that you would be curious about the unusual reaction of your partner's aunt." Dian-Jiuzhi shook his head not because he was refuting Yun-Chi's words, but because he was deriding himself. "You are so honest and frank that I, your elder, feel rather ashamed, Brother Yun. Very well. I shall be frank with you as well. Yes, I am quite concerned by Senior Sword Fairy's special treatment toward you. Can you please enlighten me as to why?" He knew that Xianxia was always acting as Xianxia's open or shadow protector. "Why? Because he always dropped everything to visit Xianxia every time she left the Pure Land. Naturally, his number of interactions with Xianxia exceeded most others. Xianxia still never afforded him a second glance, even though he was Xianxia's engaged partner. Their interactions all amounted to him performing a junior salute and Xianxia responding in kind. That was all. He had long since gotten used to this. After all, not even his father, the strongest divine regent of the 6 kingdoms of God, the abyss-renowned Dian Rahu, had ever earned more than a side glance from Xianxia. For some reason today, Xianxia gave Yun-Chi such special treatment that, He could scarcely believe his eyes or ears even now. For Hua Qingying, a woman so cold that one would almost think that she was made from stone, to act like this, the one and only reason he could think of was Hua Kaylee. "Have you heard of the Fog Monarch before, older brother Diane?" Xianxia asked suddenly. "The rumors have passed through my ears, yes." Diane Jia's eyebrows lifted a little. To think that someone dared to call themselves a monarch when the Pure Land is right above us. Whoever this person is, their death is certain the moment they expose themselves. Xianxia smiled and said nothing for a moment. "Since you're mentioning this person, could it be?" He wasn't disappointed. Xianxia took a moment to enjoy the fragrance of his tea before answering. "Since you know of the Fog Monarch, then you must know of the ancestral killing god that accompanies the Fog Monarch, and the purple sword light that scarred the sky of the endless fog." Diane Jiaji thought for a moment before exclaiming in realization, "Was that purple scar left behind by Senior Sword Fairy?" "That's right." Xianxia nodded a little. "You've probably heard only bits and pieces of rumors, and most of them are either biased or wrong beyond question. Now, you will hear the true story from someone who happened to be nearby during the incident." He began his story. When the Fog Monarch and the ancestral killing god first made their appearance, the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter happened to be training nearby. So sudden was his appearance that she suffered serious injuries and nearly died that day. "What?" Diane Jiaji abruptly shot to his feet and turned as white as a sheet. His aura swept through the area chaotically and destroyed their teacups. Xianxia lifted a finger and kept both the debris and the tea from touching him. He continued in a calm voice. "The only course of action I mean Senior Sword Fairy, could take was to draw the ancestral killing god away from the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter as far as possible. But she was alone. I happened to be in the area, and when I saw this, I found myself unable to ignore a life in need and jumped in to rescue the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter. Luckily, we were ultimately able to escape." Xianxia looked up and examined the lingering fear and trepidation on the boundless divine son's face. "Since then, Senior Sword Fairy allowed me to address her as Aunt and promised to shield me from harm." Diane Jia's reaction toward Hua Kaylee's grievous injuries and near death was quite excessive even considering his reputation. It took him a long time before he finally murmured, "To think that something like that happened." "Yes, that is what happened," Xianxia confirmed. Diane Jiaji let out a long, deep breath. Although the incident was relatively long in the past, he still looked like he was in deep shock. His aura gradually returned to calm, and when he looked at Xianxia again, he found himself staring into a pair of pure, honest eyes. It was almost as if all hypocrisy, cunning, dirt, and slander would naturally be exposed before the pair of impossibly pure eyes. Diane Jia's gaze changed. It was less probing and evaluating than before, and far more grateful. He abruptly took a step backward and gave Xianxia a deep, solemn bow. As if caught completely off guard, Xianxia did not react until he had fully performed the salute. He jumped to his feet a bit panikedly and said, "Older brother Diane, this is too much." Diane Jiaji replied sincerely, "I had thought for sure that Kaylee's trial would not meet any real danger with Senior Sword Fairy protecting her in secret. To think that she came so close to perishing, I did not even need to think to know just how terrifying the clash between Senior Sword Fairy and the ancestral killing god must have been. It would not be an exaggeration to say that death was the constant companion of anyone who dared to stray close to the battlefield, much less step onto it. If not for your suicidal rescue, I just cannot imagine." He could not finish. His voice had grown a clear tremor as well. At this point, he completely understood why Hua Qingying had given Xianxia such special treatment. To Hua Qingying, Hua Kaylee was more important than her own life. No recompense was too great considering that Xianxia had saved Hua Kaylee's life. "You saved Kaylee's life, brother Yun. It is as if you have saved my own life." Diane Jiaji took a step forward and gave Xianxia a heavy clap on the shoulder. "I shan't ever forget this favor, brother Yun. In the future, I will surely repay you 100 times over." Xianxia hurriedly said, "You're welcome, but there is no need, older brother Diane. That day, I was busy running for my life, just like everyone else. The reason I saved the Heaven-Breaker divine daughter was simply because she just happened to appear in my area. Besides, I've already obtained Ant's protection, and I was able to return to the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God thanks to the Heaven-Breaker Kingdom of God's recommendation. I've more than received my recompense." Diane Jiaji shook his head. "Brother Yun, you have no idea how important Kaylee is to me. I wasn't exaggerating earlier when I said that saving Kaylee is equal to saving my life. Xianxia. In fact, the favor is so tremendous that I can't think of a way to properly repay you right now. He thought for a moment before saying seriously, if you ever need my help in the future, just say the word and I will do my best. Xianxia seemed to hesitate for a moment before breaking into a candid smile. You really are a man of passion, older brother Diane. Very well. It would be disrespectful of me to turn down such great kindness. As you say, I will ask for your aid if I ever encounter a troublesome matter. Ha 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 ha, Xianxia laughed happily. I like it that you are so straightforward, brother Yun. My name is Xianxia, 9 No's, and one of the no's is gratitude. I would not be able to sleep well if I could not repay such a tremendous favor. The two men returned to their seats, and the natural distance that existed between them was completely gone. If I may dare ask, older brother Diane, what is Xianxia? Xianxia asked without any real thought behind it. Xianxia replied smilingly, it is the name my father bestowed me when I was first conferred as the boundless divine son. It means to know self, know others, no life, no gratitude, no shame, no good, no evil, no progress, no compromise, and finally, no fate. Xianxia smiled but did not comment on the meaning of his name. He simply said, I see. Xianxia looked curious. Usually, everyone I explained my name to would praise it as full of meaning and that I should strive to live up to it. Your reaction is the first I've seen from anyone. Xianxia thought for a moment before answering, you are a cultured yet candid man, older brother Diane, so I shall just say it as it is. Xianxia smiled. Please. I'm all ears. Xianxia lightly tapped his finger against the tea table and asked, have you ever truly felt like you understood yourself, older brother Diane? Xianxia mulled over his thoughts but did not give him an immediate answer. Xianxia looked forward and explained his meaning in the most indifferent voice. There are countless people who gave their all and devoted their whole lives into achieving a certain goal, but when they finally achieved it, they felt empty instead of satisfaction and joy. When they looked back, they found that their path was riddled with holes and scars, but the people who once accompanied them on their journey were all gone. They thought they had obtained their heart's desire, not realizing that the things they missed or lost would become eternal gaps in their souls until it was too late. So does a person truly know what they desire? Xianxia shifted his gaze slightly back to Xianxia. Older brother Diane, do you truly understand what you desire in this life? Are you sure that your hard work up to this point is correct and without regrets? Before Xianxia could answer, Xianxia continued as if talking to himself. Knowing oneself is already this hard, but knowing others is a million times harder. One might even say that there is no such thing as a person who truly, fully, understood another person. SYRCH The Ito Oval Fire, Eat-It website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. To ask a question in a similar vein, older brother Diane, are you sure that what you give to a person with all your heart and soul is what she really wants? Are you sure her thoughts are what you think they are? Xianxia seemed a little moved by this. Again, Xianxia ignored his reaction and summarized his view. To know self, know others, no gratitude, no shame, no progress, and no compromise. Those who claim that they know themselves is just deceiving themselves. Those who claim they know others are just presuming. Those who know shame and gratitude are easily trapped by the very concepts. Those who knew progress are quick to regret their decision not to compromise. Just those who knew compromise are quick to regret their decision not to progress. As for no life, no good, no evil, and no fate, it is hard enough to know self and to claim to know life. How audacious can one get? What is good and what is evil? If a profound practitioner ventures into the endless fog, then the abyssal beast is a life-threatening evil that must be slain. However, to an abyssal beast, a profound practitioner is the villain who invades their territory. In that case, who is good and who is evil? How can one determine that without thought? As for no fate, Xianxia shook his head wryly. What is fate, should a man obey the ancient saying? Fate cannot be defied, or should they say, I am the only one who decides my fate. If fate is real, then why bother fighting at all? If fate isn't real, then isn't the whole concept just a big fat lie? In just a few sentences, Xianxia had utterly disparaged the name Boundless Divine Regent had bestowed to Xianxia. Therefore, your name might sound full of meaning, but in my opinion, it is the opposite. After he was done with his evaluation, Xianxia added humbly, but of course, these are just my personal opinions. I am hardly experienced or knowledgeable, so there is no way I could understand the Boundless Divine Regent's views. You should just treat it as nonsense. Diane Jiuzhe's eyes were unfocused, as if mulling over something, however. When he finally came to, he asked, "You have ever insisted on calling yourself Yun-Chi, brother Yun. Is there some sort of expectation behind your name as well?" Yun-Chi answered, "Yes and no." Diane Jiuzhe. A look of reminiscence overtook Yun-Chi's features. "My master is the one who gave me my name. He called me Yun-Chi because he hoped that I would be as carefree as the clouds and as clear as the waters. No matter how high I climbed in the world, no matter how many merits I've earned, or what kind of reputation I've garnered for myself, his only expectation for me is to live safely, peacefully, and happily." It was a stark contrast compared to Diane Jiuzhe's 9 no's that was full of expectations, advice, and warnings. Yun-Chi continued, "Therefore, everything I say and do to others or myself, favor or shame, I simply act as my heart tells me to. After all, if I were to value or obsess myself over a certain thing too much, it would have the opposite effect, you see." Suddenly, Li Xiu's voice rang inside Yun-Chi's soul sea. "This confession of yours is surprisingly thoughtful and deep. Is this your view of life after everything you've been through?" Yun-Chi secretly hid a smirk and replied, "Oh my God, it's just a bunch of crap I came up with to disorient him, and you actually took it to heart. Forget about it now." Li Xiu. Diane Jiuzhe fell silent for a while longer before sighing. "Ever since I became the Divine Son, I would always remind myself with 9 no's and never so much as bend the constraints. But now I truly feel a little lost." "Ha ha ha ha!" Yun-Chi suddenly barked out in laughter. "I told you it's just a bunch of nonsense. You should be laughing together with me, much less feeling lost over it." Diane Jiuzhe did not do as he said, however. He said seriously, "It is my honor to make the acquaintance of a man like you, brother Yun. It is one of my deepest regrets not being able to make your acquaintance sooner." He rose to his feet and said, "I'm sorry to say this, but I cannot linger because I still have some business to attend to. Although our meeting was short, it was a most enlightening and joyous one. You have given me much to think about, and I only regret not having met you earlier." Yun-Chi replied, "I am the same, brother." Diane Jiuzhe offered him a heartfelt invitation. "Your name will become renowned throughout the abyss after today, brother Yun. When you are free, please pay me a visit at the boundless kingdom of God. I promise I will be your host the entire way." "Ha-ha, of course. With this, I bid you goodbye." Diane Jiuzhe gave Yun-Chi a strong nod and turned around, or at least he wanted to, when another question suddenly occurred to him. "Brother Yun, there is one more thing I would like to ask your opinion about." "Please speak, older brother Diane. Do you have someone you're interested in, brother Yun?" Yun-Chi answered without hesitation, "Of course." "In that case," Diane Jiuzhe's gaze grew a little shifty, "how would you earn your beloved's love and delight?" Yun-Chi replied smilingly, "When a tree is tall, phoenixes will come. When a flower smells nice, butterflies will arrive. True love is not begged, but drawn. Even if your begging did manage to attract something, it would not be love, but compromise and sympathy." Diane Jiuzhe wobbled a little. Then he smiled. "Thank you for your guidance, brother Yun. I shall take my leave now. Zhani, please escort Divine Son Diane out." After Diane Jiuzhe left the confines of the Divine Sun Palace, Yun-Chi's expression immediately turned strange. He muttered under his breath, "Back then, when I first arrived at the Eastern Divine Region, Xianxia was the lady goddess and greatest divine daughter of her kind. Her brain was full of schemes and plots, and her methods were only more ruthless and cunning than the last. She was so much scarier than the devils I knew back then. That god-damned Brahma soul death-wishing mark especially makes me want to plow her at least 10 times. In comparison, this so-called greatest divine son of the 6 kingdoms of God, I can scarcely believe that his brain is filled with such nonsense." Li Xiu. "That's what you want, isn't it?" Yun-Chi rubbed his chin and thought for a very long time. Finally, he muttered to himself, "Despite his brain, or rather lack of, the profound energy and pressure he gives off is no joke. In this regard, at least, he definitely deserves his title. Considering his cultivation, status, and a brain full of Kaylee, if I use him right, he could prove to be an excellent tool." Li Xiu. Li Xiu let out a sigh. "You are becoming more and more like what the Devil Queen wished for you to be. Your first thought upon meeting anyone is to think how you can turn them into a tool." This was not praise. She was, in essence, the creation god of life who loved all life after all. "Everyone must grow," Yun-Chi said seemingly uncaringly, but could not help but add a quiet whisper at the very end, "whether they like it or not." As if sensing Yun-Chi's emotions, Li Xiu changed the subject. "Diane Jiuzhe clearly intended to visit you. If he really was busy, he would have chosen a better time to pay you a visit, wouldn't he? It was just an excuse." Yun-Chi smiled. He came here today to probe me, thinking that he could find out my temperament and background. However, it turned out that I was the one who held the reins of the conversation from the start until the end. Worst of all, I was able to inject a crack in his belief. Jiaji was his divine son title and the creed he lived by as the boundless divine son. Even the tiniest crack is enough to alarm him and have him take evasive maneuvers on instinct. Xianxia had returned to his bedroom at this point. He ordered, "Zhiyuan, I'm going to catch some rest now. Please wake me 6 hours after the conferral ceremony is over. Reject all meeting requests during this time, no matter who they are." He then lay down on his bed and closed his eyes. "How will you deal with Meng Jiangxi?" Li Xiu asked. "Are you really asking that question?" The corners of Xianxia's lips curled up slightly. "A man who has not encountered any difficulties his whole life does not deserve to be my opponent." Li Xiu said slowly, "He is the Dreamweaver divine son. Hua Qingying herself warned you to be careful about him." Xianxia replied without a care, "That's because I am a naive junior who just returned to his homeland in her eyes. Unfortunately for her, I'm not. My objective and opponent is the entire abyss. I will be humiliated if I so much as afford Meng Jiangxi a straight look. It's still better to be safe than sorry." Xianxia closed his eyes and muttered, "I may act cautiously, but I must dream recklessly. Otherwise, how can I possibly destroy the entire abyss?" Li Xiu stopped talking then. Xianxia's breathing also became slow and regular, as if he had truly fallen asleep. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Empress Palace was so oppressive it was suffocating. Meng Xuanju was seated at her bed in silence and wearing a darker expression than she had ever worn in her whole life. Everyone around her was so tense that they didn't even dare to draw a deep breath. Meng Jians apologized to Meng Jiangxi. "I was careless, Your Highness. I did not think that boy would. I am grounded for half a year for my misconduct, but I swear I will find a way to deal with him during this half a year." Meng Jiangxi shook his head and said firmly, "It's not your fault." He let out a small sigh. "From the beginning, he acted insolently, recklessly, and without a care for the consequences. I thought it was just because he was arrogant and foolish, but a perfect divine essence. Ha!" He chuckled self-derisively. "He could have acted 10 times more insolent than this, and it would have been perfectly reasonable." SE, a small capar, letter 1D04H, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Mother, Meng Jiangxi bowed slightly in his mother's direction. "Please get some rest and do not take today's incident to heart. This child will be taking his leave." "Wait." Meng Xuanju finally spoke up, and her voice was shockingly hoarse and raspy. It sent a chill down everyone's spine. "Have you forgotten what will happen to me if Meng Jiangxi regains his memory, Jiangxi?" Meng Jians immediately bowed his head and pretended to be an ostrich. "This child did not forget, of course." Meng Jiangxi exhaled deeply and responded as if every word was weighed down by a mountain. "Good." Meng Xuanju continued in an eerie voice. "He already died once. He could die a second." A silhouette cut through the air like lightning, and a hand clamped around Meng Xuanju's mouth and forced whatever she was going to say back down her throat. Their eyes met. One pair was filled with viciousness and violence, and the other pair stretched so wide the seams threatened to split open. Meng Jians shuddered. To say he was stuck between a rock and a hard place would be an understatement. "Mother," Meng Jiangxi uttered through gritted teeth, "do you even understand what a perfect divine essence even means? You forget it. You only need to remember this, Mother. I did not plan on admitting defeat, and I'm not about to start now. Even if he has a perfect divine essence, I still have a powerful clique. It is not impossible for me to come out ahead. However, that time is not now, do you understand?" He finally let go and turned away from his mother. Before he left, he cast down one last warning. "Do not put me in a difficult position, Mother." He left without looking back after that. Meng Jians hurriedly took 2 steps backward and said, "A million peace to you, Empress. Jians will take his leave right now." "Jians," but Meng Xuanju called out to him and stopped him in his tracks. Her eyes looked a little unfocused, and the darkness in her voice lessened a little. "To think Jiangxi is cowed, you are his closest and most trusted older brother, Jians. You are the only one who can help him now." Meng Jians felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He asked cautiously, "And how can I help His Highness Divine Son exactly?" Meng Xuanju sent her servants away so they would be alone. Then she slowly rose to her feet and began a slow walk. From the start, Jiangxi believed that Meng Jianyuan was only temporarily untouchable because he had just returned, and the Divine Regent was at his most sensitive right now. In reality, Meng Jianyuan has nothing besides the divine regent's love right now. Considering the ambition and cunning he displayed today, he is going to become far scarier and more untouchable in the future. If we wait, Xianxi's situation will only become more hopeless than it already is. Meng Jians wanted to agree with her logic, but he didn't dare to interrupt her. Since Xianxi has been cowed into submission, you are the only one who can tell him that Meng Jianyuan is not actually as scary as he appears to be. He still has many flaws and dirty sides that we can exploit to our advantage. Me? Meng Jians looked completely confused. I want your help with something. Meng Xuanju moved closer to him, and her subdued voice became darker as a result. Don't worry, this endeavor is completely risk-free, be it for you or anyone else. I'm not telling you to kill Meng Jianyuan, I am. She narrowed her eyes slightly, and her voice grew softer. The most fragile thing in this world, the one thing that cannot stand any temptation at all, is human nature. All you need to do is to enlarge his greed and tempt him into succumbing to his nature, so he may leave a permanent, irreparable stain on his honor. Since this has nothing to do with schemes, entrapment, or framing, it carries no risk to you whatsoever. Understand? Meng Jians nodded his head. Meng Xuanju raised her hand, and a silvery white light filled the entire palace. It was as if moonlight had suddenly filled the room, and its divinity was beautiful and all-encompassing. Meng Jians exclaimed in shock when he saw this. The divine jade of revelation. Meng Xuanju explained. This was the ultimate abyssal crystal bestowed to Xianxi when he became the divine son over a century ago. All profound practitioners below level 5 divine extinction realm will not encounter a bottleneck if they have this. There is only one in the entire Dreamweaver kingdom of God. Xianxi has left it with me for the day he enters the 5th level of the divine extinction realm in one go. Now, it has gained another use. As she spoke, Meng Xuanju deposited the priceless abyssal crystal into his hands. You know what to do, Meng Xuanju instructed carefully. Remember, the abyssal crystal must enter his hands. Jians understands. Meng Jian's voice was shaking, but he did not refuse the task. After putting away the divine jade of revelation, he asked carefully, One thing, Your Majesty, Meng Jianyuan is anything but a simple-minded person. He will probably see through our intent easily. Besides, he has a perfect divine essence and Father's lopsided love. He can simply request whatever resources he needs. I just don't see why he would need to risk himself like this. Did you think I wouldn't have considered what you're saying? Meng Xuanju sneered. Meng Jianyuan has been wandering outside for over 100 years. Everything he saw up until this point is inferior objects. The divine jade will be far more attractive to him than anyone else. Besides, he must be feeling like the height of his world right now. He might think that it's only a matter of time before the Dreamweaver kingdom of God falls into his grasp. Given enough recklessness and greed, he, more than anyone else, has the highest chance of succumbing to greed. When a person is driven by fierce excitement and greed, their rationality is usually shoved to the back of their mind. Anything they did while under the effects of excitement and greed is reasonable. By the time he realizes his mistake, it will already be too late. So, Meng Jians asked, what if he doesn't fall prey to his desires? It doesn't matter, Meng Xuanju replied. I have many other ways to tempt him. One of them has to garner his interest eventually, and we only need to succeed one time. If it comes to it, we can even consider sacrificing Xianxi's consort. Meng Jian's heart chilled. He could only say yes. After Meng Jianyuan awakened him from his nap, Yun Qi leisurely made his way to the kitchen. When he left, he was holding a jade box in his hand. He gave his attendants several instructions before leaving the Divine Sun Palace. Behind him, Shangyuan Helu was staring at his back adoringly. She looked like she was admiring a god of her dreams. Yun Qi made it all the way to Meng Kongqin's dreamless pavilion without encountering any difficulty whatsoever. You came, Yuaner. Meng Kongqin's voice entered his ears before he even met the divine regent. Yun Qi hastened his footsteps and stopped in front of Meng Kongqin. Then he saluted respectfully and said, Junior Yun Qi has come to beg for your forgiveness, divine regent. Oh, really? What for? Meng Kongqin watched him with a teasing smile on his face. Yun Qi put on a look of regret. You went so far as to gather the core powers of the kingdom of God to conduct this divine sun conferral ceremony, and I hesitated until the very last day only to rebuff you. I must have let you down, divine regent. Oh, you, Meng Kongqin chuckled. You're a cunning one, aren't you? You say this, but you knew I would never be angry with you about it. By the way, is the reason you hid your perfect divine essence for so long to give me a wonderful surprise. I guess. Xianxia took 2 steps forward and placed a jade box in Meng Qanchen's hands. Senior, I feel apologetic toward you, but I'm not sure how to make up for it. So I made a bowl of soup. I dare not dream that it will resolve your annoyance, but I do hope that it will alleviate some of my regrets. Soup. Meng Qanchen couldn't help but be surprised by this. While shooting Xianxia a strange look, he opened the jade box and was immediately caught off guard by the delicious aroma that came from it. Before he knew it, he had given it a tentative sip. His eyes froze, and it wasn't until a long time before he looked at Xianxia in astonishment. Did you really make this yourself? Yes, Xianxia replied. Master is the one who taught me how to cook. Master often said that hunger is one of the 6 base desires of a person and no weaker in any other desire. It's just that this way has declined for a long time since fewer and fewer people are willing to devote their energy and time to cooking. Meng Qanchen picked up the jade box and enjoyed another sip. He actually closed his eyes and lost himself in the taste for a good few breaths before murmuring, I have cultivated the soul for tens of thousands of years, and I thought my soul to be as impervious and firm as a stone. To think that a small bowl of soup could make me feel like my soul is about to rise to the heavens. He opened his eyes and cast Xianxia a long look. You are just a never-ending bundle of pleasant surprises, aren't you? Xianxia hurriedly said. I'll cook often for you if you like it, Divine Regent. Meng Qanchen gave him a warm smile before lifting the box with both hands and slowly drinking the soup. By the time he set the box down, not a single drop was left behind. A moment later, he said smilingly, I'm starting to understand why you managed to woo Kaylee, boy. Though if you really want to make me happy above anything else, you simply need to call me Father. Xianxia opened his mouth but eventually bowed his head. When I first recognized this world, I already had no parents. However, that is precisely why my desire for parental love far exceeds that of a normal person. To me, the word parent holds a connotation so sacred that, if I address you as father as anyone else but Meng Jianyuan, I think it would be blasphemous toward the word and unfair toward you, senior. Meng Qanchen waved him off but did not look disappointed. It's fine, you're right. You haven't recalled your past yet. If you force yourself to obey me, I probably wouldn't be too happy either. He walked up to Xianxia and gently grabbed his arm. I'll patiently await the day you regain your memories, Yuaner. I will wait for the day you return to me whole. As soon as he finished, his eyes suddenly flashed silver, and Xianxia found his left arm being lifted into the air. A silver radiance flowed down Meng Qanchen's body and into Xianxia's. Xianxia's heart shook. He could clearly feel Meng Qanchen splitting out a portion of his soul. Senior Divine Regent, you... Meng Qanchen did not respond, however. It wasn't long before the silver life fully transferred to Xianxia's left hand and wrapped around his little finger. It then transformed into a small and delicate silver soul ring. The light faded, and the soul ring disappeared into thin air, leaving no traces behind. Meng Qanchen exhaled gently. Remember, if you ever encounter danger, just break the ring, and I will rush to your side no matter where I am. Xianxia clenched his left hand tightly with shaky eyes. Splitting your soul like this will hurt your soul origin. You're the dreamless Divine Regent. How could you? This soul ring was similar to a soul imprint that could only be sensed after death, but also very different in other ways. The former cost 100 times more soul origin than the latter, after all. Meng Qanchen slapped him on the arm to silence him before saying solemnly, I would be reluctant to do this for anyone else, yes, but you. I will give you anything, Yuaner. You have my word that what happened to you back then will never happen again. Xianxia pushed down his gratitude and nodded slightly. Okay, I will cultivate hard in the next period and make sure that my cultivation will be worthy of your gift and Kaylee's devotion. I will do my best to become whole again. After he left the dreamless pavilion, Xianxia did not leave the Divine Sun Palace immediately. Instead, he chose a random direction and enjoyed a relaxing walk. He had not truly observed this nation of soul cultivation since entering the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God. Now was as good a time as any. As expected, he elicited cries of surprise wherever he went. He rarely responded to any of them. His gaze was always distant, his mind was memorizing the layout, and his ears were listening to every piece of useful gossip or information. He did not know how far he walked when suddenly, his gaze was drawn toward a certain direction. It was because he sensed a hint of darkness. There was only one kingdom of God in the abyss that cultivated dark, profound energy, and that was the owl-butterfly kingdom of God. As he moved closer to the source of the aura, a man in black outfit entered his vision. His long hair was disheveled, covering his face. Despite giving off the powerful aura of a divine extinction realm, his footsteps were as heavy as lead. His feet moved forward so stiffly one could mistake them for prosthetics. He paid zero attention to the surrounding gazes or voices. As his hair waved, Xianxia accidentally met his eyes between the gaps. His heart and soul immediately twitched once. The unexpected reaction immediately alarmed Li Xiu. "What did you discover?" "It's nothing." Xianxia deftly looked away as he replied, "I just recalled my old self, that's all." Li Xiu. "Your old self?" Xianxia's voice grew a little heavier. "That man's eyes looked extremely similar to the stray dog I was when I first escaped to the northern divine region. Despair as dark as the abyss of death, an utter absence of light and desire toward life. But unlike him, the thirst for vengeance still burns within me. The me at that time would pay any price to obtain the power to claim vengeance. Life, dignity, I could have given up everything without the tiniest bit of hesitation. But him, he most likely wasn't as lucky as I was. Without any hope to reverse his situation or claim vengeance, all he has left is grayish despair." He was already far away by the time he finished explaining to Li Xiu. After all, he wasn't too willing to be reminded of those painful, dark days. Then he heard the guard disciples discussing among themselves. "Hey, isn't that the former divine son of the owl butterfly kingdom of God, Pan Buwang? What on earth happened to him? AI, he lost his title, and he was rejected and oppressed by his own kingdom. First, his mother was removed from her throne. Then she apparently passed away because of illness. I even heard that the Eternal Divine Regent has completely abandoned him. Who could possibly accept such a downfall? Besides, I heard that he and the previous divine daughter of the Eternal Night Kingdom of God, Shen Wuqing, were lovers, but she... SHH. Best not to talk about the Eternal Night Kingdom of God at all. Anyway, it looks like Pan Buwang is headed to the sinking Dream Valley. It couldn't be. Is he really?" Xianxia stopped in his tracks, and a strange glint flashed in his eyes. Xianxia's leisurely stroll lasted another hour before he changed direction and headed toward Sinking Dream Valley. Although Sinking Dream Valley had the word valley in it, it was really located inside a massive palace. From the outside, the palace looked to be several kilometers wide at most. In reality, its internal space spanned over 100 kilometers. It was also shrouded by fog like a dream. When Xianxia got close, a Sinking Dream Valley disciple walked up to him and said stiffly, "If you are not a seeker of Sinking Dream, then please go as far away as possible." A person who wished to enter Sinking Dream Valley was either excessively agitated or looked to be in despair. It was clear at first glance that Xianxia wasn't such a person. Xianxia said indifferently, "Please inform Valley Master Neha that Xianxia has come to pay him a visit." "Xianxia?" The Sinking Dream disciple frowned for a second before realization struck him. Your divine son Yuan." He immediately dropped to one knee and said, "I have eyes but cannot see. Please forgive me for my foolishness, divine son Yuan." "Is Valley Master Ne present?" Xianxia asked. The Sinking Dream disciple answered respectfully, "In fact, yes. The Valley Master is currently receiving a rather special guest in the valley. I shall notify him right away." He did not keep Xianxia waiting for too long. Meng quickly strode out of the entrance, his ancient face arranged into a smile as he greeted him. "You surprised me, divine son Yuan. I wasn't expecting you to have the leisure to visit my old self." Xianxia was a god-bearer with perfect divine essence, and a man who conducted himself like a conqueror. Although he had rejected his title, Meng already thought of him as the future Dreamweaver Divine Regent. The Divine Sun conferral ceremony had just concluded a while ago, and he still hadn't recovered from the excitement he received during the ceremony. Now Xianxia was paying him a visit in person. It was no wonder that the wizened old man looked a little overwhelmed, in a good way, of course. Xianxia bowed slightly and greeted him humbly. "I am aware of my rudeness for visiting without informing you beforehand. I hope I haven't interrupted your work." Meng hurriedly dodged out of the way. "You cannot bow to me, divine son Yuan. I am an old thing with one foot in the grave. Just tell me what you need, and it shall be done." Xianxia obliged and jumped straight to the point. It would be impolite to refuse so very well. Was that Pan Buwang, the former divine son of Owl Butterfly Kingdom of God who entered the Sinking Dream Valley just now? "That's correct." Meng recalled Pan Buwang and sighed. "Sigh, fate has a way of making men miserable. To think that a former divine son would fall into such despair that his heart is like a pool of death. Wait. Are you here for Pan Buwang, divine son Yuan? Are you acquainted with him by any chance?" Xianxia shook his head. No, I am not. Have you put Pan Bueng inside Sinking Dream? Meng-Na sighed again. He is the former divine son of the owl butterfly kingdom of God, so this old one tried his best to persuade him to see reason. However, not a sliver of hope could be found in his heart, nor was there any attachment toward the mortal coil whatsoever. All he asked was to fall into an eternal dream. He even gave me all of his abyssal crystals and profound artifacts, so the dream could last as long as possible. That's why I had no choice but to obey. He has already fallen a slumber, and I was just about to put him in a dream when I heard your arrival. I decided he could wait a bit and came to meet you first, Divine Son Yuan. Xianxia let out a sigh of relief. Good, good. I'm glad to hear that the disaster is averted. Disaster? Meng-Na was caught off guard by his word usage. What do you mean? Valley Master Na? Xianxia's expression grew solemn. You've been the Valley Master for many years. Do you know if a divine son or divine daughter has ever plummeted into Sinking Dream in the long history of the Sinking Dream Valley? Never, Meng-Na replied without hesitation. Everyone who can become a divine son or a divine daughter is a dragon or phoenix among mortals. They do not need a dream to escape the sorrow of the mortal coil. Besides, everyone knows that entering Sinking Dream is basically half a death sentence. That is the opposite of what a divine child desires. As if realizing what Xianxia was trying to say, he added quickly, Pan Bueng may be a former divine son, but his title was removed, and his current status in the owl butterfly kingdom of God is even worse than an ordinary prince's. As for what he experienced, Meng-Na shook his head again. Sinking Dream isn't bad considering his circumstances. For him at least it is a wonderful escape. Xianxia frowned. Even if he was removed, he is still a god-bearer with 80% divine essence. Besides, how do you know he won't become the owl butterfly divine son again? Meng-Na looked confused. I don't understand what you mean, divine son Yuan. Do you remember how much divine essence Meng Jianyuan bore, Valley Master Na? Xianxia asked a question every man and woman in Dreamweaver knew about. 80%, Meng-Na answered with the same confusion. And how much divine essence do I have now? Xianxia asked. 100. Xianxia's gaze sharpened, and Meng-Na felt an invisible pressure on his shoulders. If Meng Jianyuan, a god-bearer with innate 80% divine essence, can awaken another 20% and become a perfect god-bearer, then why not Pan Bueng? But, Meng-Na argued, a miracle like yours does not happen even once in 100,000 years, divine son Yuan. The chances are exceedingly low, to say the least. That's exactly right. The chances are exceedingly low, but it is by no means absolutely impossible. Xianxia's voice relaxed slightly. So, what if Pan Bueng did awaken his latent divine essence? What if he turned out to be better than the current owl butterfly divine son after his awakening? Did you consider what you might have done if that scenario, however unlikely it might be, came true? Meng-Na stopped breathing for a moment. Xianxia continued. Once a person plummets into a dream and enjoys all the luxuries they were unable to enjoy in reality, they would no longer be able to accept cruel, hopeless reality. They would become crippled in both body and mind. Even if Pan Bueng did awaken his divine essence down the line, it would be meaningless because he'd be crippled by Sinking Dream. Can you imagine how angry the owl butterfly kingdom of God would be if that happened? Who do you think they would blame when all was said and done? Before Meng-Na could answer, Xianxia pressed. Valley Master Na, can you say with absolute certainty that this what-if scenario will never happen? You still have the option to say no right now. Why should you accept such a huge risk into your Sinking Dream Valley? Xianxia's final argument extinguished whatever retort Meng-Na was going to muster. Cold sweat broke out of his forehead when he mulled over everything Xianxia said. He let out a huge sigh before exclaiming as if awakening from a dream of his own. You are absolutely right, divine son Yuan. Even if it is exceedingly unlikely that such a scenario would happen, if it did, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Thank goodness that you arrived before I put him in Sinking Dream, divine son Yuan. I will pull him out right now. No, but Xianxia stopped him. Pan Bueng came to Sinking Dream Valley for a reason, and you said it yourself that he has fallen into such despair that his heart is akin to a pool of death. If you awaken him and inform him that you cannot allow him to enter Sinking Dream, you would be cutting off his final attachment toward life. Valley Mazer Na, you must have seen countless people like him, and you must have disallowed some of them from entering Sinking Dream for various reasons. Pray tell, how many of them chose to commit suicide after hearing your verdict? Meng-Na blanched a little. SYRCH the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Considering Pan Buwang's current state, robbing him of his final wish could very well drive him to suicide, am I right? Yun-Chi looked at Meng-Na. If, say, the former divine son of the owl-butterfly kingdom of God chose to kill himself in the Dreamweaver kingdom of God, Yun-Chi shook his head slightly. This could be a big or small matter depending on the circumstances, but regardless, sinking Dream Valley would not be able to escape responsibility. It is yet another risk that you should not take. Meng-Na withdrew his foot and turned around to face Yun-Chi directly. Then, his posture visibly lower than what it was before, he said, "Please guide me, Divine Son Yuan." As the Valley Master of Sinking Dream Valley, Meng-Na had witnessed all kinds of people in his life. However, he had never received a divine child before now. After all, it was far, far too difficult for a godbearer possessing enough divine essence to be born. In fact, only one had appeared in nearly every generation except this one. This was a special generation where multiple divine sons and divine daughters had appeared in multiple kingdoms of God. One could even say that this was a generation of miracles, one that some even argued had appeared to combat some sort of tribulation. Naturally, this was the first time Meng-Na had encountered such a conundrum. If it wasn't for Yun-Chi's repeated reminders, he would not have realized that he was burying a huge threat one for his own sinking Dream Valley. Yun-Chi pretended to think for a moment before asking, "You said he has fallen a-slumber, Valley Master Na. In that case, can you guide his subconscious to follow me obediently?" Meng-Na nodded hurriedly. "That's easy. All dream seekers lower their soul defenses in order to enter the dream. In his current unconscious state, it would be very easy to add some suggestions to his mind. But this doesn't seem like the best idea. It's better than the alternative." Yun-Chi ordered immediately, "Valley Master Na, prepare a small, profound arc and set its destination to the endless fog. At the same time, suggest to Pan Buwang that he follows me for the next hour. I will personally send him away from the Dreamweaver kingdom of God, and I will make sure that there are plenty of witnesses. This way, whatever Pan Buwang decides to do after he awakens and realizes that he has been rejected by Sinking Dream Valley will have nothing to do with Sinking Dream Valley or the Dreamweaver kingdom of God." Meng-Na nodded strongly. "That makes sense. That would eliminate all the possible risks. You are only 120 years old and you are already so thoughtful and farsighted. I am most impressed. With you at the helm, the Dreamweaver kingdom of God will surely welcome in a golden age." It wasn't long before the profound arc was prepared. Yun-Chi quickly boarded the boat with an unconscious Pan Buwang standing right beside him. "Xiaoyuan, stay at the Divine Sun Palace. This is one trip you won't be following," Yun-Chi messaged. Meng Xiaoyuan's voice returned quickly. "The Divine Regent gave me strict orders not to leave your side, young master." Yun-Chi narrowed his eyes slightly and uttered in a cold voice, "And I do not need a subordinate who disobeys my orders." A long, long time later, Meng Xiaoyuan finally replied, "I will quietly await your safe return, young master. Relax. I'm just escorting Pan Buwang out of our kingdom. I'll be back before you know it." The profound arc activated and flew toward the exit. Countless people saw Yun-Chi escorting the former owl-butterfly divine son, Pan Buwang, out of the Dreamweaver kingdom of God. It wasn't long before the profound arc flew past the borders and toward the endless fog. Yun-Chi was standing at the bow of the profound arc and casting his divine perception ahead. "What are you plotting?" Li Xiu asked. Yun-Chi answered with half-lidded eyes. "The best way to manipulate a man in despair is to give him the thing he needed the most. He would do anything to have it." He knew this with absolute certainty. After all, he had been in Pan Buwang's shoes before. "Where are you taking him?" Li Xiu asked another question. "Nowhere," Yun-Chi chuckled. "It's just a ruse." As soon as he said this, he grabbed Pan Buwang and jumped off the profound arc, landing on a barren mountain. The profound arc continued to fly toward its set destination until it ran out of energy and crash-landed in the endless fog. Bang! As soon as the duo landed, Yun-Chi produced the world Divine Stone and created a profound formation in a flash of red light. Then he and Pan Buwang vanished into it. Deep in the endless fog, Yun-Chi dropped Pan Buwang on the ground before mustering his intent. The slumbering abyssal Killin God immediately opened its eyes and planted an impossibly terrifying force field on the unconscious Pan Buwang. This way, the man would not be able to move a muscle even if he woke up prematurely. Xianxia himself had already stepped through the profound formation and returned to the barren mountain. After he put away the world-divine stone, Xianxia took to the skies and leisurely made his way back to the Dreamweaver kingdom of God. Everyone saw Xianxia sending Pan Buweng away on a profound arc, and everyone saw him returning alone too. Clearly, Divine Son Yuan was just seeing off a guest. Now, whatever happens to Pan Buweng, it no longer had anything to do with Xianxia or the Dreamweaver kingdom of God. After returning to the Dreamweaver kingdom of God, Xianxia traveled straight for his Divine Sun Palace. When he got close, Meng Kongdu, lord of the first Dream Hall, happened to be flying toward him. He was followed by a young man. Judging from his appearance, he was probably one of Meng Kongdu's sons. Xianxia slowed down and greeted them, "Dream Lord Meng." Meng Kongdu's expression darkened. He looked away and snorted through his nose. The young man behind him looked conflicted, however. He did not dare to greet Xianxia, but he did give him a nod. Xianxia did not respond to him. When they passed by each other, he let out a cold snort of his own and said, "Idiot." Meng Kongdu abruptly stopped in his tracks and looked back. He asked darkly, "What did you say, Meng Jianyuan?" Xianxia also stopped in his tracks and looked back, but he was full of smiles, unlike Meng Kongdu's stormy expression. "I see your ears are failing because of your age, Dream Lord Du. I don't mind repeating myself for old folks like you. Listen clearly, Dream Lord Du, I said, idiot." "Ha!" Meng Kongdu was so angry he was sneering. "Do you think I wouldn't dare to teach you a lesson just because you are protected by the Sword Fairy and possess a perfect divine essence, Meng Jianyuan?" Boom! His fingers opened, and a storm of power shook the surrounding space. "Ha-ha-ha-ha! Ha-ha-ha-ha-ha!" Xianxia's chuckle slowly turned into a full-throated laughter of scorn. "If you really know that I am under Aunt's protection, then you should know that there is no one she wouldn't point her sword at once she resolves herself to kill someone. If you really know that I have a perfect divine essence, then you should know who will be the future divine regent of the Dreamweaver kingdom of God." Meng Kongdu stiffened, and his presence shriveled despite himself. Meng Kongdu's aura was terrifying to say the least, but Xianxia continued to stare at him like he was a piece of dirt. "Anyone with even a speck of brain would know that now is not the time to provoke me. Even if you don't wish to leave Meng Jiangxi's clique, you should have been smart enough to play both sides and leave yourself an out if nothing else. Unfortunately, there will always be self-conceited idiots who can't see past their own noses. Am I right, Dream Lord Du?" "You!" Meng Kongdu snarled, but his presence shriveled up even more. It was at this moment a hand grabbed Meng Kongdu's arm. The young man behind him hurriedly stepped forward and saluted Xianxia deeply. "Divine Son Yuan, my father is a forceful and inflexible man, but he doesn't mean to disrespect you. Please forgive his natural temper. I promise to pay you a visit in the future and apologize on his behalf in the future. Please forgive him." Meng Kongdu's mouth twitched, but he did not refute him. Xianxia cast the young man a long look but did not say anything either. He turned away and left. Meng Kongdu withdrew his aura and lowered his arm. For a time, he couldn't say anything. After returning to the Divine Sun Palace, Xianxia stepped into his cultivation space immediately. Deep inside the endless fog, Pan Buweng struggled back to wakefulness. He did not know how long he had been unconscious. All he knew was that he felt like a million mountains were sitting on his person. When he forced himself to lift his head, all he could see was thick darkness and even thicker abyssal dust. "Where is this?" I thought. "I'd entered a dream, so why am I still suffering? Why am I not seeing Wuking? You're finally awake, pitiful boy." A cold, low voice that seemed both far and close at the same time entered his ears. Pan Buweng stiffly turned his neck until he saw a ball of distorted gray fog. There seemed to be a pair of dark, shadowy lights in the gray fog, a pair of ever-changing eyes. "Who are you?" He thought that sinking Dream Valley only produced the most wonderful dreams, so why was he encountering the darkest nightmare instead? The distorted shadow answered, "I am the Fog Monarch who rules the endless fog." "Fog Monarch," he whispered before laughing scornfully. "Hee ha 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 ha, hilarious to think you would use such a laughable method to humiliate me. I don't care who you are, kill me if you dare." "Heh heh." The Fog Monarch returned a chuckle of his own. "You are just a spineless worm, and you think you deserve me to humiliate you." "Pan Buweng." The Fog Monarch addressed him by his name. "Are you aware that you have branded an eternal stain on the title Divine Son with the pitiful being you are?" "Ha ha ha ha." Pan Buweng was still laughing tragically, uncaring how the so-called Fog Monarch knew about him. "That's right, I'm just a pitiful piece of trash who can't do anything. I wanted to protect my mother, but I could only watch her die a horrible death. Her murderers were right in front of me, and yet I was powerless to lay so much as a finger on them. I promised Wuking I would free her from that mad witch, but she died. She died, and I don't even have the right to take revenge for her. Ha 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 ha. He was laughing, but his tears were streaming. The Fog Monarch asked, "So how did Shen Wuking die? Did you witness her death with your own eyes?" Pan Bueng was still laughing. "No, I couldn't even meet her one last time. So what you're saying is that you didn't see her die?" The Fog Monarch's voice abruptly turned harsh. "So how can you say that she's actually dead?" Pan Bueng's laughter abruptly ceased, and a furious, uncontrollable roar erupted from his mouth. "She's dead. Xiu Yanai killed her. Everyone knows that she's dead." The Fog Monarch simply sneered. "So your love for your so-called beloved is so fickle that a few careless words from others is enough for you to sentence her to death, instead of believing that she would struggle to live despite everything because of the bond you share, and suffer in silence if only to increase your chances of living. You would rather believe that she is a useless piece of garbage who would plummet into the darkness and despair at the first sign of tragedy." Pan Bueng's eyes widened with pure, unadulterated fury. "She is not a piece of garbage. You don't get to call her that. You're the one who believed that she's a piece of garbage." The endless fog's cold voice devoured his full-throated howl like nothing. "You're the one who sentenced her to death in your heart. You're the one who lacked even the courage to venture into the eternal night kingdom of God and confirm the truth with your eyes. You think you deserve the former eternal night divine daughter, as you are right now, not even a little. 1. Usually to bury a threat is interpreted as to end a threat, but in this case I hope it sounds like he accidentally buried a time bomb under his house that would explode one day. Search the novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality." Pan Bueng suddenly stopped struggling and his eyes came to a complete standstill. He murmured, "That's right, a piece of trash like me never deserved Wuking. She wouldn't have been murdered by that crazy bitch if it wasn't for me. What's even the point of living anymore? What else can I do?" The Fog Monarch replied. "If you live, you can take back everything you lost. If you live, you can make everyone who kicked you while you were down tremble in fear and regret. If you live, you can take revenge for your mother. If you live, you can travel to the eternal night kingdom of God yourself and confirm Shen Wuking's condition. If you live, you can help a living Wuking break free from her current fate if she is still alive, or take revenge for her if she really is dead." "Ha, ha, ha!" Pan Bueng laughed as if he just heard the funniest joke of the century. He was laughing at both the so-called Fog Monarch and most of all himself. "You think I don't want that? I have dreamed it all, but I'm just a discarded pawn, a useless piece of trash. I'm so useless even my furious roars are just a source of amusement to others, so useless that I can only fulfill my desires in a dream. You are a piece of trash." The Fog Monarch gave his cold, indifferent evaluation. "But in my hands, even the most worthless piece of trash can become a king that overlooks all." As the terrifying voice descended, the Fog Monarch abruptly approached and stepped on Pan Bueng's back where his heart was located with a right leg covered in thick abyssal dust. "Ugh," Pan Bueng groaned, but he couldn't resist at all since his body and his profound energy were completely suppressed by the abyssal killing god. Not that he wanted to. His initial struggle was just instinct, and he relaxed immediately after he realized, or at least he thought he realized, what was going to happen. His expression was painful, but there was no fear of death whatsoever. It was at this moment a ball of absolute darkness erupted from the Fog Monarch. It surged through his right leg and into Pan Bueng. Pan Bueng's eyes immediately bulged like they would fall out of his eye sockets and turned pitch black. He felt as if a billion devilish blades were cutting him from the inside and subjecting him to death by 1,000 cuts. A painful hoarse scream escaped his throat, but it only lasted for an instant. He immediately suppressed it until only the sound of his gritted, cracking teeth could be heard. The Fog Monarch sneered. "Looks like this crippled soul is hiding some pretty tough bones." Pitch-black profound light flashed from his person once more, and bang. Pan Bueng's body abruptly cracked open, and several thick jets of blood shot out of his back. Pain surpassing the limits of his soul caused Pan Bueng to crush all of his teeth to dust. At the same time, a ghastly, painful howl that sounded like it came from the most despairing ghoul escaped his throat. Then, the Fog Monarch kicked him and sent him flying through the air. The pressure on his back lessened considerably, and Pan Bueng struggled to his feet despite his tattered back and mouthful of blood. When he lifted his head to stare at the Fog Monarch, though, he wasn't wearing an expression of hatred or fear, but astonishment. deep, unthinking astonishment. He stammered with clear disbelief. "Why you? What did you do to me?" "I just forced a divine essence into your body, that's all." The silhouette hidden behind the gray fog casually said the most ludicrous and unbelievable thing in the world. "I also improved your compatibility with dark, profound energy. You can feel it, can't you?" Pan Bueng wobbled and nearly fell back to the ground. He just barely caught himself before shaking his head in disbelief. "No, no, I really am dreaming. This can only be a dream." As expected of a useless piece of trash, you can't even believe what your body's telling you. The fog monarch sneered before firing 3 dark spikes into the confused Pan Bueng. Shred, Pan Bueng turned white as a sheet as the dark spikes pierced his body and inflicted unimaginable pain upon his person. It also awakened his distorted, chaotic soul. "Do you think a pitiful dream can hurt so bad?" The fog monarch stepped closer to Pan Bueng, and every time he took a step, the former divine son felt like his soul was heavier. "Tell me right now, Pan Bueng, will you continue being a worthless piece of trash that even you are unwilling to rescue? Or will you take back everything you lost and take revenge for yourself, your mother, and your Wuking?" Pan Bueng looked up. The look in his eyes was so fiery, so savage, so maddened, and it was exactly what the fog monarch expected to see. After all, he understood Pan Bueng's feelings all too well. Utter helplessness and hopelessness that burned his heart so that all that was left was ash. If given even a ray of hope, much less a miracle like nothing the abyss had ever seen, then he would rise from the ashes like a phoenix. No, a vengeful devil who would do anything to grasp it. "Who are you? Who are you?" He glared at the grayish fog in front of him, but try as he might, his spiritual perception could not touch the unknown figure behind the gray fog even a little. He really had gained a new portion of divine essence. He now had 90% divine essence, just like Pan Bujuo. His darkness, profound energy really was much tamer than what it used to be. As far as he knew, either boon should have been absolutely impossible. However, the impossible pain ravaging his soul even now told him that it wasn't a dream. "Fog monarch," the silhouette behind the grayish fog uttered like a true abyssal devil. "I have already told you. I am the fog monarch who rules the endless fog. I am also the one true monarch of this world." Pan Bueng wiped away the bloodstains on his mouth and replied, "Who deserves to call themselves monarch when the pure land exists above? Who would dare? Who are you? Why are you helping me? What is your goal?" More than that, he wanted to know how this so-called fog monarch was able to forcefully awaken his divine essence and improve his compatibility with dark, profound energy. If news of this were to spread, he could not even imagine what kind of shockwaves would erupt from the 6 kingdoms of God. The fog monarch did not respond. He simply floated into the air and opened his arms. The surrounding abyssal dust immediately thinned like the fog under the morning sun. Pan Bueng stiffened immediately. His bloodshot eyes kept widening and widening until not a shred of white could be seen anywhere. It was because he just saw the most horrifying scene of his life. The first thing he saw after the abyssal dust dispersed was the legendary ancestral Kilin god. It was standing obediently behind the endless fog like a pet dog. There was no mistaking what it was, however. It was gigantic like a mountain, and its eyes were flashing with terrifyingly dark light. Behind the ancestral Kilin god were several thousand pitch-black silhouettes. They were all abyssal beasts. Their shadowy, glimmering coats were all he needed to see to know that they were alive and intact. But not a single one of them was succumbing to their natural, destructive instincts. They were standing or sitting quietly behind the fog monarch, perfectly quiet and uniform. "Lie down," the fog monarch commanded. Boom, several thousand booms overlapped one another until it sounded like the collapse of heaven and earth itself. However, it still didn't amount to even 1/10,000th of the shock in Pan Bueng's heart. Every abyssal beast, including the legendary ancestral Kilin god, had crouched at the fog monarch's command. Their movements were perfectly uniform and unhesitating. Even their heads were touching the ground like humble subjects paying their respects to an absolute monarch. "Ah, ah," Pan Bueng's eyeballs bulged, and his mouth widened into an O shape. The incoherent sounds coming out of his mouth were raspy and trembling. "Pan Bueng!" The fog monarch spoke again, though this time it felt like it came from a place far, far beyond the sky. "Tell me, who am I?" "You," Pan Bueng's mouth opened instinctively. "You are the fog monarch." The visual impact he just received was so absolute, so potent, that the words tumbled out of his mouth before he knew it. He, a man who revered the abyssal monarch like no other, had addressed another person as a monarch. Good. The fog monarch gave him a short, succinct praise. You are my chosen one. Now kneel and accept me as your master. Do this, and I shall grant you the power to claim vengeance. Pan Buwang's face froze for only half an instant. Then he dropped to his knees and shouted, The discarded son of Owl Butterfly, Pan Buwang, accepts the Fog Monarch as his master. Thank you for this gift, Fog Monarch, master, the Fog Monarch hummed. Why didn't you ask why you were chosen by me? Why didn't you ask what kind of price you have to pay? Pan Buwang's head hit the ground hard. When he looked up, the light of madness and violence in his eyes was practically blinding. As long as you are willing to grant me the power to take revenge, Fog Monarch, no, master, then this body, this heart, this will, you may have everything. Good. Remember what you said today? The Fog Monarch raised his hand and executed calamity and misfortune. In an instant, infinite darkness flooded in from every direction and devoured the last ray of light in this space. In just the span of a few breaths, this corner of the world had transformed into a devilish abyss of infinite dark. This is where you will be staying for the next 3 years. The Fog Monarch's voice came from the darkness. I will improve your body's compatibility with darkness and transform you into the most perfect son of darkness of them all. I will increase your talent with darkness to a level where even your father may never hope to reach. Fuel yourself with obsession, desire, resistance, hatred, and push through the cultivation levels with all your might. 3 years from now, during the Pure Land meet, you must defeat Pan Bujuo with your own 2 hands. You must return the humiliation he dealt you 1,000 times over. You must show the world how stupid your father is and make him regret abandoning you from the bottom of his heart. You must be strong so that your mother may rest in peace. You must be the most powerful version of yourself so that Shen Wuking can witness an impossibly powerful Pan Buwang, be it in life or death, not a worthless piece of trash even you couldn't stand. Do you understand? Every word the Fog Monarch spoke struck the deepest parts of Pan Buwang's heart and soul. His hands were clenched so tightly that blood was bleeding through his fingers, and yet Pan Buwang couldn't feel the slightest pain. There was only renewed spirit and faith as he shouted, I will do it, I will. SE a small cap R letter 1D04H the novel. F IR. ETA website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If I am still alive, then I will take her away from her prison. If she is dead, then I will kill Shen Wu Yanai and Shen Wuyi. The Fog Monarch lifted his hand and said, Now, show me all of the profound arts you have practiced. Show me what kind of crude darkness energy the Owl Butterfly Kingdom of God wields. It was 10 days later by the time Xianxia stepped out of his cultivation space. Do you really believe in Pan Buwang that much? Li Xiu asked worriedly. If in the future he becomes strong enough to retake his old position and even become the Owl Butterfly Divine Regent, there's no way he would listen to you anymore, would he? Xianxia was wearing an enigmatic smile. Before I came to the abyss, Qi Tianli once told the Devil Queen that a single Mo Baiken was almost enough to bury the entire God realm. If the abyss were to descend in earnest, any struggle or resistance could only be futile. He learned from Mo Baiken that the abyssal monarch was really a gentle and peace-loving man. He even advised the Devil Queen to give up without a struggle and welcome the abyss, seeking coexistence. The Devil Queen then gave him a reply that moved me greatly, Xianxia whispered. She said that one must never surrender the initiative to another person. So, Li Xiu seemed to understand what he was trying to say. You're saying that Pan Buwang has surrendered the initiative to you? The corners of Xianxia's lips turned up slightly. My gift is very expensive, you know. It is so expensive that he may have to pay it back with the entire Owl Butterfly Kingdom of God. It was at this moment Liu Zhani sensed his presence and rushed over. She reported, Young Master, Prince Meng Jians is requesting you to meet him at his residence. He said it's to apologize to you and make up for the offense you received on the day of the conferral ceremony. Is this a joke? Xianxia scoffed. He seeks to apologize to me, but he wants me to go to him instead of the other way around. Tell him to fuck off. Liu Zhani hurriedly explained. It is not that he is unaware of the discourtesy, but because the Divine Regent has grounded him in his residence for half a year. That is why he has no choice but to invite you to him instead. He has been dispatching his servants to offer you this invitation every day, and each time his servants wait 4 whole hours before taking their leave. Liu Zhani then looked outside and said, In fact, the servant Prince Jian's dispatched this time arrived just 2 hours ago. He is still waiting outside the palace. Xianxia waved his hand impatiently and said, Tell him to. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and changed his tone. Tell him that I will be paying his master a visit in 2 hours." Having said that, Xianxia went to the kitchen and produced a handful of passable-looking but delicious snacks. He then delivered it to the dreamless pavilion in person and earned a ton of affection points with Meng Kongchen. After he was done maintaining their relationship, Xianxia finally made his way to Meng Jian's residence. So why was he doing this? It was because Xianxia felt like the idiot was about to bring him a great gift. Meng Jians had received the news 2 hours ago and so had been waiting for him. As soon as Xianxia stepped inside, he immediately walked up to him with an obsequious smile on his face. "Jians humbly welcomes Divine Sun Yuan to his abode. I am most honored to receive Divine Sun Yuan. This tiny residence is practically glittering because of your arrival." He looked completely different from the scornful arrogance he had a while ago. He even bent down a little to show obsequiousness as he greeted Xianxia. Xianxia shot him a look and replied with a smile that did not reach his face. "On the day of the conferral ceremony, I openly rejected the title of Divine Son. To this day, Divine Son Xianxia remains the only Divine Son of the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God. You are Divine Son Xianxia's most loyal dog, but you are addressing me, a man who even refused the surname Meng, as Divine Son. Aren't you worried that a rift would grow between you and your master?" Although he was mentally prepared for this to happen, the corners of his eyes still twitched a little at the insult. Still, his smile did not fade as he said, "You may have rejected the title Divine Sun Yuan, but is there anyone in the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God, no, the entire abyss, who doesn't know you as Divine Sun Yuan?" He wasn't exaggerating. In just a matter of 10 days, the news that a God-bearer with perfect divine essence had spread throughout the 6 kingdoms of God once more. The Pure Land must have learned of the news immediately as well. Compared to Xianxia, the current Dreamweaver Divine Son Meng Jianxia was so much less worthy. It wasn't even funny. As soon as he finished, Meng Jian saluted Xianxia as deeply and obsequiously as he could. "I had eyes but couldn't see that day. I have verbally offended you many times and even came close to injuring you during a moment of insanity. Although I have already received my rightful punishment from Father, I wasn't able to apologize to you in person. As a result, I have been plagued by fear and anxiety all this time." Instead of lifting him up, Xianxia put on an innocent, harmless smile and asked, "Since you're acting like this, I'm sure your apology isn't only verbal. Have you prepared an apology gift as well?" Meng Jian was visibly surprised that Xianxia would ask such a question. Then he hurriedly answered, "But of course, I am willing to do anything and pay any price to earn your forgiveness, Divine Sun Yuan." He then turned sideways and made a welcoming gesture. "This way, please, Divine Sun Yuan. I promise to give you a pleasant surprise that will satisfy you." Search the novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Meng Jian was keeping such a low posture that it almost looked servile. His behavior and conduct all bespoke regret for his earlier actions. SE a small capar letter 1D04 HTH Cyrillic novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He had never been this humble even when he was standing before Meng Jianxia. There was a saying called, "One does not slap a smiling person," so Xianxia said smilingly, "Since I am Meng Jianyuan, I should still address you as my older brother. The conflicts that day happened purely because of differing standpoints, so you really do not need to act like this." Meng Jian hurriedly said, "Your magnanimity is such that I feel more ashamed than ever. In the future, just give me the command, and I swear to see it through even if it costs me 1,000,000 deaths." "That is a grave promise. It is not something that should be said frivolously." Xianxia's expression turned a little serious. "If I take it seriously, that would severely damage your longtime friendship with Divine Sun Xianxia, wouldn't it?" Meng Jian slowly shook his head. "I am a descendant of Meng. This body and soul exists only for the sake of the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God. Therefore, I serve not a specific person, but the one and only Divine Son who controls the future of Dreamweaver." It was quite the deliberate choice of phrasing. The phrase, "one and only Divine Son," could be interpreted in many ways after all. Having said that, Meng Jian took 2 steps forward and held out his hands. A jade box about 2/3 of a meter long appeared out of nowhere. It was surrounded by profound light and locked by at least 3 seals. Meng Jian placed the jade box on the tea table and unlocked the 3 seals in succession. Then he opened the right side of the box and revealed a blast of radiance. Meng Jians reached into the jade box and carefully retrieved a small and delicate soft armor that was shining with silver light. Divine Sun Yuan. He lifted the soft armor and presented it to Yun Qi. This armor is called the Spirit Armor of Disaster Elimination. It was bestowed to me by Father when I entered the Divine Extinction Realm. It can neutralize even the full-powered strike of a middle-stage half-god instantly. Although Divine Sun Yuan is exceedingly talented and a god-bearer with perfect divine essence, you are still young, and your cultivation level is weak at the moment. You need this armor far more than I do, of course. I am aware that your safety is the top priority of the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God, and Father will surely do everything in his power to safeguard you. However, the armor is an additional layer of insurance that will set both Father and I at ease. Yun Qi was both looking at the armor and side-eyeing the jade box on the table. No one could ignore the extraordinary radiance still spilling out of the jade box. Yun Qi accepted the soft armor without hesitation and said, "Very well. I see no reason to turn down your sincere apology. You and I no longer owe each other, and what happens in the future depends solely on the trajectory of our paths." Overjoyed, Meng Jian said, "Your words are most welcoming, Divine Sun Yuan. I can finally rest. Your Highness. Your Highness." A panicked scream suddenly came from outside the hall. It grew louder in no time at all. Meng Jians turned around and roared, "The insolence! How can you scream like that in the presence of Divine Sun Yuan?" The screamer almost barged into the room on all fours while crying, "Your Highness, the First Lady is suffering a relapse of her old injuries. She's... What?" Meng Jians turned as white as a sheet, every hair on his head standing on end from how shocked he was. He subconsciously raced toward the exit and only recalled Yun Qi's existence right before he passed through the exit. He hurriedly looked back with a panicky expression on his face. "Divine Sun Yuan, forgive me for not being able to accompany you. As you heard, my wife's life is currently in danger. Please accommodate yourself while I'm gone. I will return to complete my apology when this is done." Having said that, he was gone in the blink of an eye. The servant girl who reported the incident had also ran after Meng Jians. Now Yun Qi was all alone inside the hall. Yun Qi stood up and walked over to the jade box Meng Jians had forgotten to put away in his haste. He opened it completely, and the silvery radiance that seemed like it came from the moon itself filled every corner of the hall. The profound energy it emitted was so thick, so refined, that any profound practitioner's profound veins would be shaken by it. Yun Qi reached out and grabbed the divine jade emitting the light of the moon. It was an abyssal crystal, an extremely rare and mutated form of abyssal crystal. The sheer power it contained far exceeded that of an ordinary abyssal crystal as well. An abyssal crystal at this level must be treated like a divine object even in a kingdom of God, Yun Qi commented softly. I don't think Meng Jians is powerful or prestigious enough to enjoy this level of resource. Li Xiu replied, Meng Jians is trying to tempt you into taking it. The corners of Yun Qi's lips turned up. See, even you can see through this ploy. Li Xiu wondered if she should just stay silent, but ultimately said, it's a lowly, substandard ploy. Oh no. Yun Qi shook his head immediately. It might look pathetic, but there's actually more to this than you would expect. Li Xiu was used to his retorts at this point. Yun Qi explained slowly, the brilliance of this setup lies in Meng Jian's behavior. He's been acting so obsequious today, so servile that he only wished he could kowtow to me. That, had I been a different person, I might just think that his attitude toward me had truly done a 180. I might think that I could ask anything from him, and he would give it all without even a fight. Yun Qi lifted the divine jade of revelation and examined it closely. If I really thought like that, then there is a good chance I might be overwhelmed by the tides of shock, excitement, and greed the moment I saw such a priceless treasure. Combined with the delusion that I could just take it without any consequences, I might have just stolen it without thinking. So, Li Xiu asked, is he trying to frame you for theft? No, that isn't entirely accurate, Yun Qi answered. He's trying to leave a stain on my name, the kind that is irremovable even if you only succumb to it one time. I think this is an attempt by Meng Jiangxi's clique to test me. In the future, similar temptations will be presented before me one after another. They know they can't shove me around like they do with others, so they decided to resort to such tactics instead. It's a good adaptation. If they succeed, they could tarnish my name irreversibly without ever drawing blood or leaving me a tail to grab. It sounded like he was acknowledging Meng Jiangxi's clique, but the disdainful sneer on his face said it was anything but. He lowered his arm like he was trying to place the divine jade of revelation back into the jade box, but at the last possible moment, he slipped it into the sky-poisoned pearl instead. Bang! With this, the jade box was shut tightly. "Why did you take it if you knew what they were plotting?" Li Xiu asked in puzzlement. Xianxia turned around and strode toward the exit. "Why should I look a gift horse in the mouth?" Had Meng Jiangxi meekly accepted his fate, then I wouldn't have bothered to afford him a second glance. However, he did not. In that case, this monarch does not mind reminding him how the word regret is written. "I am the fog monarch who will soon turn the world upside down after all. I think I deserve some amusement every once in a while." Li Xiu. Not long after Xianxia was gone, Meng Jians raced into the hall and made a beeline for the jade box. He opened it. As soon as he saw what was inside, or rather the lack thereof, astonishment and surprise flickered through his face. Then it morphed into deep, unbridled joy. He abruptly reached out and sucked a hidden profound imagery stone into his palm. When he checked its contents with his divine perception, the joy on his face deepened even more. A sound transmission formation took form in front of him as he cried out with barely suppressed excitement. "Your Majesty, Meng Jianyuan stole the divine jade of revelation." There was a long silence as if the listener could not believe what she was hearing. Finally, Meng Xuanju said, "Are you certain? Did you engrave it with the profound imagery stone?" Meng Jians replied in a hurry, "I'm holding the profound imagery stone right now." It recorded him stealing the divine jade of revelation as clear as day. Meng Xuanju let out a cold chuckle. "I thought that the chances he would steal the divine jade of revelation were less than 20%, but I guess I overestimated him after all. Then again, he is an inferior being who wandered the outside world for over a century, and he suddenly obtained the protection of Hua Qingying and the affection of the divine regent. Of course he was going to lose all sense of caution." Meng Jians nodded deeply. "Agreed. So what if he has a perfect divine essence? The large majority of the dream halls are still under His Highness' control. A little bit of strategy is all we need to drag him into the mud. Soon, he won't have any right to compete for the position of Divine Son anymore. Should I report this to Father right now, Your Majesty?" "No." Meng Xuanju's voice was low and dark. Even through the sound transmission formation, Meng Jians could almost imagine her cold, scary eyes. "If you tell him about this, he will suppress it immediately. Instead, inform the 9 dream halls about this, all of them. At the same time, spread word of this theft as much as possible." Meng Jianyuan had just made a name for himself, but he is unable to help his innate treachery and greed, and committed the audacious act of stealing the Dreamweaver Divine Son's divine jade of revelation. A gift from the divine regent himself. I'm sure the news will liven up the entire Dreamweaver Kingdom of God for a good while. Once Xianxia returned to the Divine Sun Palace, he went straight for his bedroom. He ordered, "I've been cultivating for days and I'm feeling a bit tired. Keep watch while I rest, Zhiyuan. Allow no one to enter unless it's a matter of grave importance." Unfortunately for Xianxia, his rest didn't last too long. Not even 2 hours later, the matter of grave importance had already erupted. "Get out here right now, Meng Jianyuan!" A furious roar resounded throughout the Divine Sun Palace. No one had dared to act so insolently before the Divine Sun Palace since the Divine Sun conferral ceremony. Meng Jian's eyes were sharp like swords, and his face was overflowing with anger. He looked like a different man who acted completely obsequious before Xianxia earlier. He was supposed to be grounded, but he was now forcing his way into the Divine Sun Palace. There was a blur, and Lu Leisheng blocked in front of Meng Jian's. He was about to say something when he saw something and flinched. It was because Meng Jian's was accompanied by a group of people that could only be described as terrifying. Meng Kongdu, Meng Keiyang, Meng Jinghai, all 9 lords of dream halls were present. "This humble menial greets the dream lords." Lu Leisheng hurriedly saluted them even as he felt his scalp crawling with fear and trepidation. He messaged his men in secret, "Quick, notify the young master right now." The second dream lord, Meng Keiyang, swept his gaze across everyone before saying meaningfully, "What a rare occurrence. I wasn't expecting to see everyone here. It looks like someone is trying to make a huge fuss about this matter." "HMPH?" Meng Xuanji sneered. "There is only one divine jade of revelation in the entire Dreamweaver. It is a huge matter. Even worse, the character of our sub-Dreamweaver Divine Son is questioned. If this isn't a huge matter, then what is?" The gift Dream Lord, Meng Keofeng, said meaningfully, "From what I observed from Divine Son Yuan's character, there is no way he would do such a thing. I suspect that foul play is involved in this matter. I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed, Dream Lord Kao Feng, Meng Jinghai replied coldly. It was at this moment everyone turned around and watched as Yun Qi slowly stepped out of a corner. His footsteps were light and his eyes looked bleary. When he got close, he even let out a huge yawn as if he had just awoken from his slumber. Acting as if he had just seen the newcomers at his gate, a disgruntled Divine Son Yuan complained. "It's you guys and Meng Jians. I thought you were grounded. Why are you screaming bloody murder at my palace?" "Meng Jian Yuan," Meng Jians glared at him angrily. "I laid down my pride and apologized to you. I was just shy of sticking my face to the bottom of your foot. Despite all that I have done, you dare to steal the divine jade of revelation. That is the gift Father had personally bestowed to Divine Son Xianxia. Divine jade of revelation." Yun Qi wore a confused expression before exclaiming in realization, "Oh, you mean that shiny, mutated abyssal crystal. The name really doesn't fit it, does it? Cut the nonsense and give it back to me already." Meng Jians uttered harshly as if he had thrown all caution to the wind. "Otherwise, I will not overlook this theft even if you are who you are, Divine Son Yuan." Yun Qi touched his chin and eyed him closely. "Theft? My oh my, you better watch what you're saying, Meng Jians. What are you all doing here?" It was at this moment a dignified voice boomed, and everyone straightened up instinctively. Then they dropped to their knees and greeted Meng Kongchen. "We greet you, Divine Regent." Meng Kongchen rapidly approached from afar. He was followed by the Chief Lord Meng Kangji and Meng Jiangxi, whose expression was difficult to identify. Meng Kongchen's expression darkened slightly when he noted that all 9 Dream Lords were present. He slowly swept his gaze across everyone before asking slowly, "Who gave you permission to leave your residence, Jians?" Meng Jians fell to his knees and replied in a pained voice, "I would not dare to disobey your orders under any other circumstances, Father, but I lost the divine jade of revelation you gifted to His Highness. This is a matter of grave importance, and I dared not treat it lightly even if the punishment I received is several times greater than this." He abruptly turned around and pointed a finger at Yun Qi. His tone turned harsh as he accused him. "It was Divine Son Yuan. After you punished me, Father, I felt deep regret and invited Divine Son Yuan to my residence every day in hopes of apologizing to him in person. Today, Divine Son Yuan finally deigned to accept my invitation and came to my residence. I offered him the greatest apology I could and even gifted him the spirit armor of disaster elimination. However, Sukin suddenly suffered a relapse, and I had no choice but to go to her side and calm her injuries with my profound energy. I never expected Divine Son Yuan to seize this opportunity and steal the divine jade of revelation I left behind in my hall." Meng Jiangxi clenched his hands and released them from time to time. His eyes were twitching now and then with unease. Meng Ke-eng interrupted. "How strange. How did Jiangxi's divine jade of revelation come to fall in your hands?" Meng Jians immediately replied, "His Highness was going to use the divine jade of revelation when he enters the 5th level of the divine extinction realm, but I recently encountered a wall while attempting to progress my soul. So His Highness lent me the divine jade of revelation temporarily so that its divine light may assist with my breakthrough. This was a great gift from His Highness and a huge show of trust, but he sobbed. "This is such an important matter that I panicked. To think that I have alarmed even Father and the Dream Lords, I have committed an unforgivable crime." Meng Jiangxi shot Meng Jians a long look, but he could hardly step out and correct his subordinate, could he? "Yuener," Meng Kongchen asked without revealing his true emotions whatsoever. "Did you take the divine jade of revelation as Jian said you did?" "Of course not." Yun Qi's eyes were still bleary with sleepiness, but they were also pure and bright. "I would simply ask you if I wanted something, Divine Regent." "That's correct." Meng Kongchen nodded. "If you are the thief, then of course you wouldn't admit to your crime." Meng Kangji took a step forward and said angrily, "Why are you so sure that Meng Jianyuan is the one who stole the item, Jians? Do you have proof?" "Of course." Meng Jians revealed the profound imagery stone he had been holding in his palm this whole time. With just a small injection of profound energy, a recording began playing before everyone's eyes. Inside the projection, Yun Qi was standing in front of the jade box with his back facing toward the profound imagery stone. Despite this, one could clearly see that he had removed the divine jade of revelation and was examining it. A short while later, he seemingly put it back in the box and the divine light disappeared just like that. When Yun Qi turned to leave, the jade box was closed completely. The projection ended, and for a time no one said anything. They were all wearing odd expressions. Meng Kangji's hair was standing as he erupted in fury. Meng Jianyuan, this old one never imagined that you would commit such a heinous act. What else do you have to say for yourself? Meng Kangji roared, but no one responded to him for a time. Even those on his side, Meng Kongdu and Meng Jinghai, for example, were wearing awkward expressions on their faces. Ha 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 ha! Meng Keying burst out laughing. I did not know that Giants had the habit of treating his guests with profound imagery stones. What an eye-opening experience this has been. The news that Meng Jianyuan had stolen a divine jade of revelation had spread like wildfire, alarming all 9 dream lords. Shocked and suspicious they might be, their first instinct, despite what they personally chose to believe, was that Meng Jianyuan really had done such a thing. After all, the rumor-monger would not have dared to fan the news so if they didn't have solid proof. Still, they never imagined that the actual process of the theft was like this. Everyone here was a lord of dream halls, an old fox. It was clear as day that this was a trap to bait out Meng Jianyuan's greed and recklessness, combined with the fact that Meng Jianyuan had just returned to the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God, and almost certainly could not have any run-in with any higher-class abyssal crystals before this, much less recognize the divine jade of revelation, or know that it was a gift to Meng Xianxia by the divine regent. The possibility that Meng Jianyuan might have succumbed to his baser impulses and committed theft definitely wasn't zero. HMPH, Meng Kangji harumphed. It doesn't matter if Giants has a habit or not. The important thing is that Meng Jianyuan has definitely stolen the divine jade of revelation. Not only did he commit such an ugly crime, he turned to look at Meng Kongchen. He openly lied about his innocence in front of the divine regent, after all the trust and love you have given him. How could he? I wouldn't say that Meng Jianyuan definitely stole the divine jade of revelation, Meng Keofeng interrupted. Divine Sun Yuan's back was blocking the view, so we could not actually be sure if he had put away the divine jade of revelation. Besides, its divine light disappeared at the same time the box was closed. If you ask me, it looks like Divine Sun Yuan placed the divine jade of revelation back in its box. Meng Kangji glanced at Meng Jians and found that his composure hadn't wavered one bit. His last bit of worry disappearing into nothing, he ordered, "Jians, explain." Meng Jians looked up and declared with a staunch expression, "I am Father's son and the student of all dream lords here. I would not dare to lie about this even if I was 1,000,000 times more arrogant than I am. The divine jade of revelation has absolutely disappeared from its box, and the only one who made contact with it was Meng Jianyuan." Meng Keiyang and Meng Keofeng fell silent. They must admit that Meng Jians wouldn't dare to make such a terrible accusation unless he was absolutely certain. They snuck a glance at Yun Qi, but the young man was still bleary-eyed and perfectly composed. Despite everything he was facing, they could only spot the annoyance of someone who had been woken up prematurely from their slumber. They snuck a look at Meng Kongchen next. His face was as cold, dignified, and inscrutable as usual. Meng Jians looked at Yun Qi and declared, "The divine jade of revelation could not have disappeared into thin air. It must be with Meng Jianyuan. He wouldn't have left it in his palace to avoid its divine aura being detected, so we simply need to check his portable space to retrieve the stolen goods." "Unacceptable," Meng Keiyang barked harshly. "Investigating one's portable space is a grave breach of anyone's privacy, much less Divine Sun Yuan's." Meng Kangji retorted, "The divine jade of revelation and the character of the sub-divine sun are at stake here. Privacy can wait for another day." "Giants," Meng Kangji said in a low tone, "this dream lord shall believe what you're saying for now and allow the forceful search of Meng Jianyuan's portable space. However, if the divine jade of revelation is not with Meng Jianyuan, you understand what will happen, don't you?" Meng Jians did not look afraid. There was only determination. "If I have spoken a single lie, may I die 1,000,000 deaths as recompense." Meng Jiangxi was frowning deeply. There were several times he tried to speak but could not. "Very good." Meng Kangji nodded and shot Meng Jiangxi an assuring look. It was only then he glanced at Meng Kongchen and said, "Supreme One, what should we do? We will obey your command no matter what." It sounded like he was asking for permission, but he was really pressuring Meng Kongchen. If Meng Kongchen decreed that the matter was to be suppressed and forgotten, no one would dare say otherwise. However, it would be the same as admitting that Meng Jianyuan had committed theft. Yun Qi spoke up before Meng Kongchen could respond. Since you're so confident and the Chief Lord is overflowing with righteous anger, I guess I have no choice but to submit to the search." He added with a helpless sigh, "That said, you might have noticed that I don't have any portable spaces with me. All I have is this dimensional ring. Check it as you please." He waved the dimensional ring he normally wore to hide the existence of the sky poison pearl. "Yuaner," Meng Kongchen spoke up, "no one can force you to do anything you don't want to." He made his stance loud and clear in one sentence. Yun Qi smiled back at him. "I have not committed a crime, so why would I be afraid? Forget checking my portable space. I am fine even if my divine sun palace is turned upside down, assuming that the seekers are willing to pay the price, of course." "However," Yun Qi suddenly squinted and said in a mocking tone, "do be absolutely careful when you investigate my dimensional ring, Chief Lord. Considering your age, I do not want to give you a heart attack." Yun Qi's surprising calmness caused Meng Kangji to frown a little. However, he ignored his unease and said coldly, "This old one has seen far greater things in his long life than you, Junior. There is nothing that can surprise me anymore." "That's what I like to hear." Yun Qi opened his arms and said, "Do as you please, Chief Lord." Meng Kangji enveloped Yun Qi in his profound energy in an instant. He checked multiple times and confirmed that the ordinary-looking dimensional ring was the only item giving off a spatial aura on Yun Qi's person. Yun Qi allowed the foreign profound energy to remove the dimensional ring from his hand and cut off his connection with it. Then Meng Kangji began ejecting the items inside the dimensional ring pile by pile. Clothes, pills, profound crystals. At first, the items falling out of the dimensional ring were perfectly ordinary. Then Meng Kangji's expression changed, and a unique radiance blasted out of the dimensional ring. At that moment, everyone's skin was dyed silver. The entire space was illuminated by a phantasmal moonlight. It was a divine jade of revelation. The small pool of unease that had gathered in Meng Jian's heart immediately erupted into pure, unadulterated joy. He nearly jumped on his face as he shouted with a tremor in his voice, "The divine jade of revelation! Look, it's the divine jade of revelation!" Many faces blanched under the blanket that was the abyssal crystal's unique light. There could be no mistake. It was without a doubt the divine jade of revelation. Meng Ke-eng and Meng Keo-feng exchanged a glance and a hidden sigh with each other. Even though they knew that this was a trap, the fact was that Meng Jianyuan had stolen the divine jade of revelation, and he was caught red-handed. At this point, the stain on Meng Jianyuan's honor wasn't just confirmed, but irremovable for as long as he lived. "What else do you have to say for yourself, Meng Jianyuan?" Meng Kangji glared at Yun Qi and rebuked him with over 10 times the confidence he had displayed before. "I understand that a shallow wanderer who has wandered the outside world for over a century like you would be tempted by the divine jade of revelation. Had you obediently surrendered the stolen goods and accepted your rightful punishment, it would be an easy mistake to overlook. However, not only did you steal the divine jade of revelation, you even tried to cover it up with a shoddy lie. This is a stain upon the honor of the Meng clan. You may be the son of the divine regent, but this is not something even you may be forgiven easily." Meng Kongchen was staring at the divine jade of revelation with a new expression as well, but it wasn't surprise or anger that colored his face. It was puzzlement. "Chief Lord." It was at this moment Meng Jiangxi's voice came from behind the old man. He said slowly and evenly, "When I first saw the divine jade of revelation, I was so stupefied by its divine light that I forgot myself for a few breaths straight. Brother Yuan's experience, cultivation, and mental fortitude are just as young as his age. It is only normal that he would lose himself to a moment of impulse." He said sincerely, "Since the item is retrieved, let this be the end of the incident, please." "Your Highness!" Meng Jians wasn't expecting to hear this at all. He turned around and glanced at Meng Jiangxi with incomprehension. All he got was a cold glare, however. "Ha ha!" A cold chuckle interrupted the moment. It was Yun Qi crossing his arms and saying leisurely, "Why don't you check what else is inside the dimensional ring before you make a conclusion, Chief Lord? Who knows, there might be a bigger surprise waiting for you." "HMPH," Meng Kangji harumphed loudly. "You are caught red-handed, Meng Jianyuan, and you dare not bow your head still. Suddenly his voice came to an abrupt stop, and his face was completely frozen. A second later, it began twitching uncontrollably as if he just saw the most unbelievable sight in his life. "Father, what's wrong?" Meng Xuanji hurriedly stepped forward with concern. Meng Kangji's mouth opened and closed. It was a long, long time before he finally managed to squeeze out, How in the—" "Oh," Yun Qi chuckled amiably. I thought you said that there is nothing in this abyss that can surprise you any more, my worldly chief lord. What could possibly make you eat your words? Incredibly, Meng Kangji did not refute him. Not only that, he was slowly turning to look at Yun Qi with an expression that could almost be described as shock and horror. Naturally, everyone was surprised and confused by his reaction. Yun Qi continued to chuckle. It seems like the Chief Lord is too shocked to pour out the remaining contents of my dimensional ring. It's fine. This junior shall shoulder his senior's burden. He made a pushing motion and released the space within the dimensional ring. There was a bright flash of spatial energy, and something landed right next to the divine jade of revelation. Something that boasted the exact same light, radiance, aura, and shape. It was yet another divine jade of revelation. Everyone's eyes widened like saucers, but before their shock could even hit them, Yun Qi casually moved his fingers again and summoned a third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Bang, bang, bang. The Dream Lord's eyes widened so much it was a miracle they hadn't split apart. 7 moonlight radiance. 7 divine jades of revelation had tumbled out of Yun Qi's spatial ring and hit the ground with a dull thud. For a time, no one could say a thing. Meng Jian's mind went perfectly blank, and even Meng Kongchen was stunned by what he saw. He might be the dreamless divine regent, but not even he had seen so many divine jades of revelation in his life. In fact, the one and only divine jade of revelation that ever graced the Dreamweaver kingdom of God was the one he had bestowed on Meng Xianxia. 7 divine jades of revelation shining together. This was a lavish moment not even the Pure Land could replicate without considerable, if not impossible, effort. This wasn't the end, however. Yun Qi waved his arm, and a pile of unusual lights blasted out of his spatial ring and pierced everyone's eyes and souls. Some lights were bright, and some were dim. Their colors and shapes differed from one another as well. However, everyone present still recognized the pile of items instantly. They were all mutated abyssal crystals that the kingdoms of God unanimously called extraordinary treasures, and their auras marked them as on par with the divine jades of revelation. There were a total of 23 of them. This time, even Meng Kongchen reeled back half a step from his original spot. "Is that the obsidian evil-removing crystal?" Meng Keyang muttered. "The burial star jade, the pale white abyssal crystal, and is that crimson abyssal crystal, the primal flame crystal?" "What? The primal flame crystal?" Meng Keofeng turned to stare at her sibling in absolute shock. "I thought that's a fictional item that only exists in legends. It's actually real." The 9 Dream Lords of the Dreamweaver of God were all divine limit realm profound practitioners and boasted a vast wealth of knowledge and experience. They were all terrifying characters who were subordinate to none but a true God. And yet, right here and now, they were shaking from head to toe and making squeals of astonishment that did not fit their status or power at all. They looked like they were dreaming. Whoosh! It wasn't until Yun Qi retrieved all of the mutated abyssal crystals that the Dream Lords jolted back to reality, though he left the 7 divine jades of revelation on the ground. SYR letter 1D04H the NOVYOL IR.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. While everyone was staring at him like he was a monster, Yun Qi stepped forward and picked up a divine jade of revelation, saying, "My master was an incredible person. Before he passed away, he had left me a fair number of mutated abyssal crystals for my future growth and breakthroughs. Right now, I still can't use the divine jades of revelation probably because their energy level is too high. That was why I normally used them like torches while journeying through the endless fog. They are quite effective. I normally called them torch stones. It wasn't until now that I realized that they were called divine jades of revelation." His remark was so ridiculous that the Dream Lords nearly sprained their lips. While the divine jades of revelation were illuminating Yun Qi's face, he side-eyed Meng Jian's and said, "Anyway, you were saying that I risked the wrath of a divine regent and the scorn of all just to steal a stone I normally used as a torch, Prince Jian's. Please continue." Meng Jian's mouth was opened wide enough to fit an egg. To say that the situation had completely surpassed his expectations would be an understatement. He was so shocked that he had forgotten how to speak. His heart and soul were in complete chaos right now. It was the same for Meng Kangji. In his, and frankly, everyone else's opinion, Meng Jianyuan should be a shallow wanderer who had never made contact with a divine object like the divine jade of revelation. To his ilk, it should be something he didn't even dare to imagine in his dreams. That was why it was perfectly rational to think that he would be tempted by it. They could never have imagined that Xianxia would own not one, not two, but an entire pile of mutated abyssal crystals. It was such a number that it positively terrified them and made them wonder if they were in a dream. If all these mutated abyssal crystals were invested in a single person, they could not even imagine the kind of monster it would produce in the near future. Maybe, in the eyes of Divine Son Yuan, they were the amusing frogs in the well who threw a tantrum over a mere divine jade of revelation. No wonder Divine Son Yuan had looked bored and lazy while staring at them like they were a bunch of idiots. As he said, why on earth would he debase himself by stealing the divine jade of revelation Meng Jian's had obviously laid out as a trap? Xianxia continued. At Prince Jian's residence, his acting skills were so sublime, so exquisite, that I could not even be bothered to muster the breath to expose him. So I gave the torch stone a cursory look before tossing back into its box. I also closed the jade box he had purposely left half open. You saw it all on the profound imagery stone. Xianxia shook his head with deep disappointment and scorn. However, I never imagined Prince Jian's would lose his head over something so trivial and try to accuse me of a severe crime. As if that isn't enough, his so-called concrete evidence isn't actually concrete at all. How terribly unassuming. You're lying, you're lying. Meng Jian's complexion was beet red and the bulging veins on his forehead threatened to pop open. You took it. You could be the only one who took it. His Highness Divine Jade of Revelation must be among these even. This is all just a deliberate show to obfuscate the fact that you stole it. Xianxia cast him a sympathetic look. You know it's all too easy to find that Divine Jade of Revelation, right? He looked at Meng Kongchen and said, This junior hasn't known the Divine Regent for long, but I know enough that he is a meticulous and careful man. Therefore, this junior dares to guess that the Divine Regent planted a soul imprint on the Divine Jade of Revelation. In the unlikely case, someone got greedy enough to steal it. That is correct, Meng Kongchen replied affirmatively. When I bestowed the Divine Jade of Revelation to Xianxia, I did in fact plant a soul imprint on it. It is shaped like a Zai character. Meng Xianxia looked visibly surprised. He had no idea the dreamless Divine Regent had done such a thing, but then again, there was no way he could have detected the dreamless Divine Regent's handiwork. That's perfect. Xianxia cracked a smile. With the soul imprint, I'm sure you already know where the Divine Jade of Revelation is, Divine Regent. Everyone turned to look at Meng Kongchen, and the dreamless Divine Regent replied, Yes, I knew where it was even before I came here. His eyes slowly shifted, until it came to a stop on Meng Jianxia. As Meng Jianxia's pupils dilated with unease, Meng Kongchen asked, I'm only going to ask you one time, Xianxia. Giants claim that Yuaner stole the Divine Jade of Revelation. Do you know where it is? Meng Jianxia's head was buzzing with a million thoughts and emotions right now. He felt a fresh surge of fear and panic as he met Meng Kongchen's calm, indifferent eyes and shook his head woodenly. Father, I don't know, I really don't. Meng Kongchen did not say anything, but Meng Jianxia caught a flicker of emotion on his face. It looked like disappointment. It was then a silver silhouette rapidly approached the group and dropped to one knee beside Meng Kongchen. Supreme One, I have found it. The silver silhouette held up a jade box, and it opened to reveal the moonlight radiance of the Divine Jade of Revelation. Where did you find it? Meng Kongchen asked. Supreme One, the silver silhouette bowed his head and replied clearly, This one found it in Divine Son Xianxia's residence. Meng Jianxia wobbled on his feet. He could not believe what he was hearing. Meng Jian's turned his head so fast that he nearly broke his neck as well. Jian screamed, It can't possibly be at His Highness' place, it just can't. Mistake. Meng Kongchen fed and everyone's heart trembled. He made a grabbing motion and the Divine Jade of Revelation in the jade box floated to Meng Kongchen's soul energy. The next moment the word Zai appeared at the bottom of the abyssal crystal. It was a soul imprint the dreamless Divine Regent had personally engraved into the abyssal crystal. Who could fake it? Who would dare? This also proved that this Divine Jade of Revelation was the one Meng Kongchen had gifted to Meng Jianxia back then. There was no other possibility. Oh, Xianxia exclaimed in realization. I see now. It's Divine Son Zai and Prince Jian's joining hands to put on a heist show. To think that such an ugly show would be spread throughout the kingdom, and even alarm the Chief Lord and the 9 Dream Lords. My eyes are opened, and I am impressed beyond words. The 9 Dream Lords exchanged glances with each other. They could only find stupid astonishment and more stupid astonishment on everyone's face. Meng Jiangxi forced himself to calm down and met Meng Kongqen's eyes directly. He said sincerely, "Father, after you gave me the divine jade of revelation back then, there were multiple times I nearly lost control and used it even though it would be unwise. So I gave it to Mother and told her that she could only give it to me after I had reached the peak of level 4 divine extinction realm. Therefore, the divine jade of revelation has not been with me for many years. I have no idea how giants came to have it, much less appear at my residence. It's just—" He wanted to say that it was impossible, but Meng Kongqen had undoubtedly located the divine jade of revelation with his soul imprint. It could not be faked or questioned, to say the least. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what the idiom, "not even 100 mouths could clear one's name," meant. Left with no choice, he swore on his honor as the divine son. "Father, Dream Lords, I may be flawed in many ways, but I have always thought of my title as the divine son as the highest honor. I would never do anything to besmirch it, much less use such a lowly tactic against Brother Yuan. Please see the truth, Father, Dream Lords. I really have no idea about this." "That's right," Meng Kangji hurriedly chimed in, though his tone was nowhere as confident and accusing as before. "Divine Son, Jiangxi is the divine son you chose. You should know better than anyone how he behaves and conducts himself. Xianxia and Jianyuan are the best young men Dreamweaver has ever welcomed, and it is good for them to compete against each other in a healthy fashion. However, stealing his own possession to frame Meng Jianyuan, this is something Xianxia would never do." Meng Kangji abruptly spun around and roared at Meng Jians. "This is something you selfishly cooked up, didn't you? Speak. Tell us everything." SYRCH The Novel Fire. Eat It website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Earlier, Meng Jians had messaged him and sworn on his life that he saw Meng Jianyuan stealing the divine jade of revelation with his own eyes. That was why he was overflowing with passion and certain that he would be able to score one back for Meng Jiangxi. Now, he only wished he could slap Meng Jian's head off his shoulders. The twists and turns were so incomprehensible that Meng Jian's poor brain threatened to tear itself apart. He more than anyone else wished to know what on earth was happening. When Meng Kangji's angry roar jolted him back to reality, he shuddered and did the only thing he could think of: push all the blame on Yun Qi. This really has nothing to do with His Highness. Meng Jianyuan really did steal the divine jade of revelation. That is the truth. That is the truth. Father, you have to believe me. If I have breathed a single lie, may abyssal dust devour me forever. He had seen with his own eyes Yun Qi taking the divine jade of revelation and leaving in a hurry. It was the truth, and it should have been impossible for Yun Qi to turn things around. That was why he could not believe that the divine jade of revelation would appear in Meng Jiangxi's residence, even though the dreamless divine regent himself had decreed it so. To prove that he wasn't lying, he had even sworn an oath that anyone would agree was beyond cruel. Then realization flashed through his muddled head. He screamed, "Meng Jianyuan!" Meng Jianyuan must have snuck it into His Highness' residence after stealing the divine jade of revelation. He must have. While side-eyeing Meng Jians, Meng Kongqen uttered, "Xiaoyuan." Meng Xiaoyuan soundlessly appeared and knelt beside Meng Kongqen. Meng Kongqen asked indifferently, "Tell me, did you undergo anywhere after he left Jian's place?" Meng Xiaoyuan replied emotionlessly, "Young master first went to your dreamless pavilion after leaving the Divine Sun Palace. Then he accepted Prince Jian's invitation and went to his residence. He left 7 or 8 minutes later and returned straight to his Divine Sun Palace. He was resting in his bedroom until he was woken up by this." Once again, Meng Jians was stunned. "Lei Shang," Meng Kongqen called out next. Lu Leisheng immediately stepped forward and dropped to one knee. "Did Yuaner leave even once after his return?" Lu Leisheng replied without any hesitation. "Supreme One, the young master has been resting in his bedroom since returning. He has not taken a step outside since his return. Every guard, steward, and servant in the palace can attest to that." He shot Meng Jians a glance before adding, "If the Supreme One, the Dream Lords, or Divine Son Jiangxi have doubts, please select any guard or servant and put them under Falling Dream." His declaration was so certain, so absolute, that it became unnecessary to put anyone under Falling Dream. Meng Kongqen stared at Meng Jians, who looked like he had lost his soul, and said, "Jians, Jiangxi, tell me this. If Yuaner really was the one who took the divine jade of revelation, how could he possibly sneak out of his bedroom and into Jiangxi's residence without being detected by anyone?" Meng Jiangxi could not answer that. Meng Jian's was collapsing bit by bit like a melting snowman or a piece of mud on the wall. Half-slumped, he muttered again and again with empty, lost eyes. Impossible, impossible, I am possible. Bolstered by the fact that he had absolute truth on his side, he had obeyed Meng Xuanju's orders and blown the incident up as much as possible. It was to rescue Meng Jiangxi's lost honor in front of the biggest crowd. Now, he got the crowd he wanted, but instead of Meng Jianyuan earning an irremovable stain on his honor and being remembered as a thief for eternity, it became him and Meng Jiangxi working together to frame Meng Jianyuan. Worse still, the mountain of evidence was positively unassailable. Everything he said and displayed as the evidence of Meng Jianyuan's crime earlier had become the evidence of his crime instead. This is irrefutable evidence, Jians, Meng Keiyang said indifferently. I never knew that you were audacious enough to frame Divine Sun Yuan in front of the Supreme One and the rest of us. He cast Meng Jiangxi a glance. Divine Sun Zai, he is yours. I trust you know how to deal with him. Also, you best pray that you truly have nothing to do with this incident. Meng Jiangxi slowly closed his eyes and said in a painful voice, The divine jade of revelation is mine, and it was found in my residence. I'm well aware that I wouldn't be able to escape responsibility. Please give me some time to investigate the truth, Father, Brother Yuan, Dream Lords. If I fail, I am willing to accept any punishment. Meng Kongchen turned around and stared at the Dream Lords. You're all lords of a dream hall, and you have all shown up to witness such an ugly, trivial matter. You must all be quite free, aren't you? All 9 Dream Lords bowed their heads at once. This was a conflict between Divine Sun Zai and Divine Sun Yuan, and it was such a sensitive period too. Of course, they could not help but show up in person. It was worth it, though. Just witnessing Meng Jianyuan's pile of abyssal crystals was enough to unsettle them even now. At the same time, they finally realized that even their highest estimation of Meng Jianyuan was still the grossest underestimation of the millennium, if not ever. You may withdraw, Meng Kongchen ordered. This is not for the Dream Halls to handle. The Dream Lords, including Meng Kangji, replied with their affirmations and left. Naturally, they were all shooting Meng Jiangxi and Meng Jianyuan complicated looks prior to their departure. After the Dream Lords were gone, Meng Jiangxi abruptly fell to his knees and said, Father, this really has nothing to do with me. I know, Meng Kongchen replied indifferently. Meng Jiangxi looked up in shock, but he did not feel relieved or happy at all. It was because Meng Kongchen's eyes were filled with an emotion far worse than even volcanic fury, disappointment. Do you know why you've lost this badly despite having done nothing? Meng Kongchen stared at him. All rulers must know how to rely on their subordinates, but at the same time, it is a double-edged sword. You trusted Jian so much that he came to grow his own delusional opinions. You relied on your mother's clan so much that you were basically held hostage by them. Are you really going to tell me you have no idea who the one who plotted this farce is? Meng Jiangxi slowly turned white, but he just could not say that name no matter what. It is true that you haven't done anything, but it is equally true that this matter started because of you. Therefore, you bear a certain amount of responsibility. Meng Kongchen raised a finger and pushed the divine jade of revelation belonging to Meng Jiangxi to Yun Qi. When it landed in Yun Qi's hand, the soul imprint shaped like the character's eye was completely gone. This divine jade of revelation shall go to Yuaner as recompense. Do you object? It was framed as a question, but who would dare to object against a divine regent's decision? Meng Jiangxi's face was gray with defeat, but he forced himself to look accepting and said, I will remember your teaching, Father. I have no qualms surrendering this divine jade of revelation to Brother Yuan if it could quell the grievances he received. Good, Meng Kongchen said before giving Yun Qi a nod. Then he turned to leave. He never shot the limp Meng Jians a single glance. As Meng Kongchen passed by Yun Qi, his voice rang in his ears. How did you do it, Yuaner? I knew I couldn't fool you, Divine Regent, Yun Qi replied vaguely and shamelessly. It's just a spatial trick, that's all. Meng Kongchen replied, There are plenty of powerful guards watching Jiangxi's residence, and one of them isn't too far behind Xiaoyuan. What on earth is this spatial trick, that it could fool even their spiritual senses flawlessly? You have a lot more hidden trump cards, don't you? Now that I think about it, your aunt must have intervened to prevent you from revealing your true strength. Very good. His tone wasn't accusing. On the contrary, Meng Kongchen sounded very happy. Yun Qi was going to say something, but Meng Kongchen pressed on. The obscene number of mutated abyssal crystals you displayed today has stunned Meng Kangji and the 9 Dream Lords and drastically altered their inclinations. That is enough. Make sure you hide the rest of your trump cards well and do not reveal them to anyone unless absolutely necessary. Not even me, understand? In the distance, Meng Kongchen turned around to give Yun Qi a smile before fading into nothing. For half a breath, something touched Yun Qi's heart. He had prepared an explanation for any question Meng Kongchen might throw at him already, but to his surprise, the Divine Regent asked nothing. There was only one reason he would do that. He trusted and accepted him that much. After Meng Kongchen and the Dream Lords were gone, the formless pressure that filled the area gradually dissipated. As if he had found his soul again, Meng Jians abruptly climbed to Meng Jiangxi's side while yelling, "I'm not lying, Your Highness. I really saw him taking it with my own." Bang. Meng Jiangxi launched a powerful kick that sent Meng Jians flying 300 meters before he smashed into a wall. Such was his anger that he held nothing back when he kicked Meng Jians. This was evident from the fact that the ground Meng Jians flew past was split open, and the wall the prince crashed into cracked like a spider web. After Meng Jians landed on the ground, he spasmed for a bit and stopped moving entirely. The mental shock he received before was already too much, and this kick was the last straw that broke the camel's back. He actually fell unconscious from that one kick. After glancing at the divine jade of revelation Yun Qi was holding one time, Meng Jiangxi forced himself to look away and ground out, "I don't care what you think, Meng Jianyuan, but I'm only going to say this once. I had nothing to do with this incident at all." "I know," Yun Qi chuckled while toying with Meng Jiangxi's divine jade of revelation. Meng Jiangxi stiffened a little before realizing what Yun Qi had just admitted to. He abruptly spun around and stared at him with wide, bloodshot eyes. It really was you who stole the divine jade of revelation and placed it in my residence without a trace." "Of course." Yun Qi's smile deepened. "What, you don't believe me?" Meng Jiangxi could not say anything for a long time. His breathing was growing heavier and heavier as well. At some point, he had to shake his head to clear the chaos inside his head just a bit and asked, How on earth did you do it?" "That's a good question." Yun Qi's expression slowly turned playful. "You can't even imagine how I did it, but I already did it. You lot think of the divine jade of revelation as a priceless divine treasure, but to me, no, they are just convenient torch stones. Do you understand the gap between us now?" Meng Jiangxi's eyes rippled uncontrollably, but he could not muster up a single retort. Still playing with the divine jade of revelation, Yun Qi continued in an uncaring tone. "You are the Dreamweaver divine son, so I don't think such a pathetic scheme would come from your hands. If you ask me, it feels more like the tantrum of a panicking woman who has lost the plot." Yun Qi pretended to think before continuing slowly. "You mentioned it yourself that you had entrusted the divine jade of revelation to your mother for safekeeping. For what reason would the divine empress be in such a hurry to overthrow me? I can't help but wonder if Meng Jianyuan's tragedy a century ago had something to do with her." Meng Jiangxi's expression did not change, but his heart was straining to hold in the tidal waves of shock. Yun Qi shot him another look before letting out a low chuckle. "A normal person would have subconsciously accused me of slander and lambasted me for making such a terrible accusation, but you are feigning calmness. Looks like I'm right after all, not only that you are aware of your mother's crime." Meng Jiangxi shook again before erupting. "Meng Jianyuan, my mother is the Dreamweaver Divine Empress. Your slander will not stand." Yun Qi beamed at him. "Calm, divine son Jiangxi, it's just a guess. I don't have any evidence to support it. Even if I do suspect something, I wouldn't be stupid enough to spread my suspicions right now. Anyway, I think you have more things to worry about than little old me. This theft of mine was blown way out of proportion, and once the truth spreads, the backlash is going to be just as bad. I'm afraid even you will suffer quite the reputation and loyalty loss. This is especially true for the 9 Dream Lords. Do you remember how they reacted and saw you? Once they have had time to digest what happened today, I'm sure their evaluations of you and me are going to undergo a drastic change." "So?" Yun Qi's smile abruptly vanished without a trace, and his eyes slowly grew as deep as the abyss. "Are you still going to fight me, Meng Jiangxi?" He was the Dreamweaver divine son. How could he lose to his opponent in terms of vigor? He furrowed his brow and was just about to mouth a retort when he met Yun Qi's eyes and found his words crawling back into his throat. How could he describe those eyes? He felt like a worm trying to meet the gaze of a dragon, like he was being looked at disdainfully out of the corner of Yun Qi's eye. His eyes were completely filled by Yun Qi's face, but Yun Qi's did not reflect his appearance one bit. At that moment, he keenly felt that Yun Qi had never thought of him as an opponent, not even a little. Suddenly, he felt as if he had lost all of his strength. The vigor he just gathered abruptly disappeared like nothing, causing him to wobble weakly on his feet. Yun Qi stopped looking at him and said in a frigid, imposing voice, "No one can take what is yours, Meng Xianxia, but if you try and take what isn't yours by force, then you are only digging your own grave. I have never been a patient man, you know. In life, choices are far, far more important than hard work. Considering everything you have right now, if you continue to make the right choices, the only one you'll have to answer to in the future is me. But if you continue to cling to your worthless pride and rather break than bend, if you must gamble away everything you have if only to prove that you're no chicken shit, I will respect you. And I will stomp you into a pool of mud you can never crawl out of. You will become the toughest, smelliest bone anyone can trample on for eternity." Meng Jiangxi's lips trembled involuntarily as he stared at Yun Qi's profile. This was a verbal threat, but from Yun Qi's mouth and into his ears, it truly sounded like a reality Yun Qi could make real with the mere wave of a hand. A long time later, he finally stammered, "Who are—" He couldn't continue. He was so shaken, so shocked, that he couldn't even remember what he was trying to ask. Yun Qi turned away and leisurely made his way back to his divine sun palace. As he crossed over the threshold, he pushed the divine jade of revelation back into Meng Jiangxi's hand. Meng Jiangxi subconsciously caught it, his mind a complete blank. "I don't like using other people's stuff. You can have it back." His words were so casual, so uncaring, that it really felt as if he was tossing away an ordinary, worthless torch stone as charity. For anyone else, obtaining even a single mutated abyssal crystal entailed venturing into the endless fog, killing heavens know how many abyssal beasts, and being extraordinarily lucky just to have a minuscule chance of finding one. Yun Qi, he could find them and extract them with a simple sweep of his divine perception. Despite this, even he found only 7 divine jades of revelation in total. Its rarity was no joke. For a time, Meng Jiangxi continued to hold the divine jade of revelation with blank, unfocused eyes before turning around. However, as if a sudden gate in his soul that he was never willing to scrutinize was suddenly unlocked, he abruptly turned back to face Yun Qi and cried out, "Wait!" Yun Qi afforded him a sideways glance. The moment Meng Jiangxi cried out the word, he felt as if the confusion ravaging his soul sea had suddenly disappeared. He stared at Meng Jianyuan and said as clear as day, "Promise that you won't harm my mother, and I, Meng Jiangxi, will serve you as your loyal subject and support your ascension." The humiliating words did not come out as hard as he thought they would. If Yun Qi was just a stronger opponent, he would not have given up so easily. However, the helplessness Yun Qi inflicted upon him was so strong that it wiped out all of his resistance like nothing. Yun Qi did not react in any particular way. He simply said, "Go sort out your intelligence network. I'll be needing it very soon. Lei Sheng, please escort the divine sun." The entrance to the palace closed and cut off Meng Jiangxi's view of Yun Qi. It also cut off his original fate. The ancestral dragon mountain range. How is Wang Chu's progress? The dragon lord's voice reeked of powerlessness and the burden of age. Long Chixin shook his head. "Passable? AI?" The dragon lord sighed quietly. "It's fine. I am satisfied if Wang Chu manages to enter the divine extinction realm before he is 600 years old. How is Long Zai?" Long Chixin subconsciously lowered his voice. "She is still searching for a primal flame crystal with all her might." Search the novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. "She won't find it," the dragon lord declared with certainty. "Once, I heard a rumor about High Priest Ling Xian dispatching her abyssal knights to scour the abyss for a primal flame crystal to treat her ill divine body. But she was unable to find a single one despite tens of thousands of years of searching. In the end, she had to search for a different solution. Mythical items like this are mythical for a reason. It might have existed once or twice in the past, but now it is probably extinct. If even High Priest Ling Xian could not find the crystal, how could Long Zai hope to? It was then he recalled that Long Zai had just retrieved an equally mythical Qilin bone spirit orchid. In fact, she had already found 4 of the so-called 5 spirit treasures. So he amended himself and said, "Still, it is better to be safe than sorry. Keep a close eye on her, Chixin. If she actually finds the primal flame crystal, "Do not worry, Dragon Lord, I understand." Rumble, the air above the ancestral Dragon Mountain range suddenly churned and space reverberated slightly. The Dragon Lord and Long Chixin lifted their heads at once. Long Chixin exclaimed in pleasant surprise, "That's, someone entered the half-god realm. Wait, this presence is... It's Long Zai." The Dragon Lord looked at the distant sky with an indescribably complicated look on her face. Long Chixin's pleasant surprise also faded into equal complexity. The Dragon Lord asked a little distantly, "Has there been any dragon in the history of the ancestral dragons to enter the divine extinction realm before 100 years old, Chixin?" "Never." Long Chixin shook his head without hesitation. It was far harder for a dragon to improve their cultivation than a human, but at the same time, their body, soul, and lifespan were much, much greater than any other race. That was why they were once the greatest of all races. In the abyss, though, they were the only beasts left due to abyssal dust. They were almost not much weaker than the Pure Land and the 6 kingdoms of God, who were dominated by the humans. The Dragon Lord let out a long sigh and muttered, "Long Zai has been reclusive and aloof since she was child. She is always alone, and she was never willing to accept even the smallest amount of resources. In the past few decades, she had to provide blood essence to Wangchu every month, and she spent most of her energy on finding the 5 spirit treasures I made up. Despite this, despite it all, she still managed to enter the divine extinction realm in less than 100 years. She was a miracle daughter of dragons that even the ancestral dragons dared not dream possible. The only problem was that her background and origin were both unknown. The Dragon Lord could not help but be impressed by this. However, his worry and panic outweighed the positive emotions. Long Chixin knew what he was lamenting about. For the past few years, the Dragon Lord's favorite sighs were, "If Long Zai is my descendant, I could die 1,000,000 deaths and feel no regrets. And I would trade my life away to make Wangchu even a tenth as good as Long Zai." Long Chixin said, "Regardless, this is a good outcome, Dragon Lord. Her dragon blood has surely undergone a drastic evolution now that she has entered the divine extinction realm. The boost she can provide Wangchu will be much greater than before." The Dragon Lord was silent for a long time before he finally nodded. "You are correct. For the sake of Wangchu and the future of my ancestral dragons, we must do whatever we can to keep Long Zai with us for as long as possible. At the very least, she must stay until Wangchu becomes a half-god." Rumble, rumble, rumble. The storm of profound energy was unbelievably strong. It sounded like 1,000,000 thunderclaps. This was just the beginning of the breakthrough, and the commotion was already this strong. The Dragon Lord could not remember a single ancestral dragon's breakthrough that could compare to Long Zai's despite his long memory. He suddenly felt a deep sense of unease. What kind of parents could give birth to such a terrible, practically heretical half-human, half-dragon? He quickly suppressed the emotion, though. If she really could rely on her parents, if her parents really were as powerful as he thought they were, she would not have to sacrifice her own blood essence just to exchange a place of peace. "Maybe there is another option," the Dragon Lord said slowly while perceiving the increasingly ridiculous phenomenon. "The Pure Land meet that will happen in 3 years is going to be a special one." His wizened eyes flickered with the light of hope. "The Abyssal Monarch has already located the spatial passage that will lead to the eternal Pure Land. 50 years later, when the 4 high priests and the 7 divine regents regain their strength, they will be able to activate the divine mirror and forge the passage to the eternal Pure Land once more. The number of people the divine mirror can teleport each time is limited. The Pure Land meet that will happen in 3 years may decide the first batch of people allowed to travel to the eternal Pure Land. Although the dragon race is humble, we will surely occupy at least 1 seat. If we can deliver Wangchu to the eternal Pure Land, his growth would most likely not be stunted by the cruel obstacles of the abyss. Perhaps in that world called the eternal Pure Land, given enough time and generations, the ancestral dragons can once again rise above all the races and become the sovereigns of all." Long Chixin nodded heavily. "Your ambitions will come true, Dragon Lord. Go to Wangchu," the Dragon Lord commanded. "Long Zai's breakthrough will surely be a huge blow to his psyche." He felt powerless even as he said these words. He knew better than anyone just how unworthy this descendant of his was, and yet, he was the only young direct descendant they had left. You must remind him again that he is not to reveal the matter regarding Long Zai's blood essence. He knew how ugly his actions were even without the lie. The fact that Long Zai traded her actual blood essence for a completely fabricated lie. Even if it was for the future of the ancestral dragon, he knew just how bad the dragon's reputation would suffer if the incident were to be exposed. I understand. Long Chixin received his order. Deep within the endless fog where not a ray of light could be found, the fog monarch made a grabbing motion and dispelled a curtain of darkness so thick it might as well be tangible. After calamity and misfortune was cancelled, the circulation of darkness throughout Pan Buwang's body immediately slowed. At the same time, the erosion and suppression of abyssal dust surged forward and drove an already exhausted Pan Buwang to one knee. He panted heavily. "Ma's Tur!" He barely cried out just in time for an attraction force to pull him toward the fog monarch. Pan Buwang did not dare to resist. He could only watch as a hand covered in abyssal dust gripped his skull. Buzz, black explosion erupted before his eyes and inside his soul sea. He felt as if he was plummeting into a devilish, dark abyss with no bottom. He kept falling and drowning in absolute darkness until a terrible pain washed over his body, and he found himself before tossed away like a piece of garbage. Ah, he shook his head and struggled to stand. Then he froze and stared dumbly at his hands. His perception of dark energy had grown clearer. The dark, profound light running around his fingers especially was so tame he almost couldn't believe his spiritual perception. Whatever that plummet just now was, it had transformed him completely yet again. Pan Buwang was struggling to stand, but he dropped back to his knees and said raspily, "Thank you, Master. Don't thank me yet." An abyssal beast emitting the aura of a divine extinction realm arrived next to the fog monarch. He tossed a large abyssal crystal to Pan Buwang before rasping coldly, "You have an hour to recover. 1 hour from now, this abyssal beast will attack you with the intention to kill. It's at the same level as you, but at this depth, the one at an absolute disadvantage is you." As the fog monarch turned and walked away, he said mercilessly, "If you are dead by this time tomorrow, then you are a worthless piece of garbage. But if you are still alive, then I will mutate your dark profound arts so that no other dark profound practitioner in this abyss at your cultivation level is your match. Do not disappoint me." As the fog monarch's back grew blurrier, Pan Buwang ground out, "10 days ago I was ready to die. Today no one can stop my vengeance. No one." Despair could extinguish one's will to live, but hope could awaken the beast in one's soul. The fog monarch knew this well. SYORCH the novel. FIR.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Dreamweaver Kingdom of God, Divine Sun Palace. Xianxia had just stepped out of his cultivation space when Liu Zhani hurried over to his side. "Young Master, Divine Sun's Eye is Visi. Excuse me, I mean Divine Sun's Eye is requesting a meeting with you. He has been waiting for 6 hours. Understood, I will meet him right now." As soon as Meng Xianxia saw Xianxia, he immediately shot to his feet with a bit of discomfort and awkwardness on his face. "Divine Sun Yuan?" Xianxia raised a hand. "There is only one Divine Sun in this kingdom, and that's you. Another person may call me Divine Sun Yuan because they're trying to flatter me, but you don't need to do this." Meng Xianxia did not insist. "Very well, I will address you as Brother Yuan then. Is that fine? It sounds better than Divine Sun Yuan, that's for sure." Xianxia did not force him to address him as Xianxia. After sitting opposite him, he asked casually, "So, why have you come today?" Meng Xianxia took a second to calm himself before starting. "The incident regarding the divine jade of revelation has subsided completely. The blame has been pinned to Giants as much as possible, and I have publicly confessed my failure to control my subordinate." However, he closed his eyes as if he didn't dare to see Xianxia's face. "My mother, she is my mother, Tell me, did Meng Jianyuan's tragedy a century ago have anything to do with your mother?" Xianxia asked suddenly. Of course, Xianxia knew better than anyone that the ones who truly killed Meng Jianyuan were Meng Jingzhe and Meng Jinzhou. Even if Meng Xuanju was involved, she was at best the seductress who whispered black words into her son's ears, or the devil who lent them the blade. Yes, to Xianxia's slight surprise, Meng Jiangxi admitted to this directly and almost without any hesitation whatsoever. He must have made up his mind and resolved himself before showing up today. Mother is at best a hidden supporter. The ones who took action were my brother Jianju and his protector, Meng Jingzhe. Meng Jingzhe and Jianju encountered their deaths in the endless fog half a year ago, so one might say that they have received the justice and punishment they deserve. Of course, that doesn't absolve my mother of her crimes, but she ultimately didn't take action herself, and you did return safely, so it is not deserving of the death penalty, I think. Xianxia thought for a brief moment before asking, "Have you spoken about this with your father?" "No." Meng Jiangxi shook his head. Xianxia narrowed his eyes slightly. "The incident happened so far ago that forget any evidence, any traces of it have long faded into nothing. No one can punish your mother as long as she denies all accusations. In fact, I'm certain that the Divine Regent has suspected your mother since a long time ago, but he is not in the habit of accusing anyone without concrete evidence, much less taking action. So why are you admitting this to me?" Meng Jiangxi looked up and met Xianxi's eyes directly. "Because I am certain that I can bring you enough value to wipe out my mother's transgressions against you." Xianxia smiled. "A great answer. No wonder you were able to recruit 6 of the 9 dream halls into your clique in just 100 years. Meng Jiangxi relaxed considerably. "So, you promised to let my mother go, Brother Yuan? That depends on you, not me." Xianxia had no idea that Meng Jiangxi would be so protective of his mother until now. Xianxi's ambiguous answer did not disappoint Meng Jiangxi. In fact, he looked almost impressed. "As expected of you, Brother Yuan, to be honest. Had you answered yes or no, I would have been disappointed with you. It looks like it wasn't just a stroke of bad luck that my spirit was completely crushed for the past couple days after all." Xianxia side-eyed him for an instant before snorting. "Save that kind of nonsense for another person. I asked you to sort out your intelligence network some time ago. Have you done so?" Meng Jiangxi replied seriously. "The Xuanji Hall, the 7th Dream Hall managed by my uncle Meng Xuanji, is the hall mainly responsible for intelligence. They usually synchronize whatever intelligence they collected with me at first notice. From now on, that privilege will extend to you as well." "What do you know about the current divine daughter of the eternal night kingdom of God?" Xianxia asked. At this point, he knew a little about all divine children of every kingdom of God except the eternal night kingdom of God. In fact, the only thing he knew about her was her name, Shen Wuyi. Hua Kali had described to him in great detail regarding every other kingdom of God except the eternal night kingdom of God. It was because she had never gone there in person or seen Shen Wuyi before. "Almost nothing." Meng Jiangxi gave him a succinct and undesirable answer. "Describe," Xianxia ordered with a deep frown. Meng Jiangxi thought for a moment before answering. It had been over a decade since the eternal night kingdom of God abolished Shen Wuking and made Shen Wuyi the eternal night divine daughter. However, no one outside of those living in the eternal night kingdom of God has seen her. Xianxia was surprised. "She's that well hidden?" "That's right." Meng Jiangxi nodded. "It's not because the eternal night kingdom of God is intentionally hiding their newly appointed divine daughter, though. It's the fact that the eternal night kingdom of God has been in isolation all these years." He took another moment to compose his words before continuing. "The previous generation of the eternal night kingdom of God wasn't called eternal night. In fact, it shared a good relationship with every other kingdom of God. But after Shenwu Yanai became the divine regent, the entire kingdom was turned upside down. It is as if the entire kingdom has fallen into a gloomy, eternal night. Let's talk about intelligence first. It's not difficult to plant spies in any other kingdom of God. But the eternal night kingdom of God, even if we somehow succeeded, they would never be able to get any important information or approach the heart of their system. It's because..." Meng Jiangxi paused as if he needed a moment to process the fear he was feeling. "The lightless divine regent does not trust anyone. All core profound practitioners of the eternal night kingdom of God are planted with the eternal night death wishing mark." On the inside, Xianxia shuddered uncontrollably the second he heard the term death wishing mark. The trauma inflicted by Qianai Yinger's Brahma soul death wishing mark was that bad. To this day, he wasn't able to break free from its shadow completely. It was obvious that this eternal night death wishing mark was something similar. The eternal night death wishing mark is an exceedingly cruel flesh and bone mark that will subject someone to such immense pain that they would rather die, except they cannot. Meng Jiangxi lowered his voice unconsciously. The dreamless divine regent does not believe in loyalty, so she used absolute control and fear to obtain her loyalty instead. Wait, a flesh and blood mark. That's not a soul mark like the Brahma soul death wishing mark. Search the novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. It all absolute mastery over life and death could, to a certain extent, exchange absolute loyalty, Xianxia remarked. However, no successful ruler would ever do such a thing. After all, such measures may garner enforced loyalty from her subjects, but never true faith. So, Xianxia asked curiously, what happened to Shenwu Yanai that she is twisted so despite being a divine regent? Inside, Meng Jiangxi was surprised. He thought for sure that Xianxia would have heard of the story. In any case, he began his explanation. The lightless divine regent's true name is Shenwu Zihua. Despite hailing from a collateral branch of the Shenwu clan, she was the most talented, profound practitioner of her generation. It was said that her talent was second only to the sword fairy, Hua Qingying at the time. This was a scary evaluation considering that every current divine regent had lost at least once to Hua Qingying before they ascended. For the same reason, Shenwu Zihua was a natural candidate to be a divine consort. Meng Jiangxi took a longer pause this time before continuing. Back then, I believed that the eternal night divine son was called Shenwu Zuyan. I have not lived through that generation, and Father was never very willing to speak of the eternal night kingdom of God. So forgive me if I am unable to provide you with the details. All I know is that Shenwu Zihua was extremely devoted to Shenwu Zuyan. For starters, she gave almost all of her resources to Shenwu Zuyan. Once, Shenwu Zuyan was stuck on the brink of divine extinction realm for 300 years. To help him, the lightless divine regent, Shenwu Zihua ventured into the endless fog over 70 times just to find a mutated abyssal crystal that would help break through his bottleneck. She did not utter a word of complaint despite bearing countless wounds when she returned. Finally, on the 77th hunt, after she hunted a divine extinction realm abyssal beast on the same cultivation level as her alone, she finally found the mutated abyssal crystal that Shenwu Zuyan needed the most. The next year, Shenwu Zuyan finally broke through to the divine extinction realm and won the cheers of the entire kingdom. Father had let out a long sigh when he spoke to me about this incident. Meng Jiangxi copied Meng Kongqin's sigh and repeated what he said in a similar tone. There was no one who wasn't moved by her devotion. No one except Shenwu Zuyan himself. So, Shenwu Zuyan fell out of love? Xianxia could more or less guess what was going to happen after that. Rather than falling out of love with Shenwu Zihua, Shenwu Zuyan had never liked her in the first place, Meng Jiangxi answered. That's what Father told me back then. Less than 10 years after Shenwu Zuyan successfully entered the divine extinction realm, Shenwu Zuyan announced a new divine consort, and this divine consort wasn't Shenwu Zihua. Xianxia interrupted. This divine consort he chose must not have reached the divine extinction realm yet. She must have been sweet-tempered and gentle like water, and she might even have been a delicate and timid flower used to relying on others. Meng Jiangxi nodded immediately. That's right. So you have heard the rumors? Not at all. Xianxia explained. From what you described, Shenwu Zihua was a woman who could kill a divine extinction abyssal beast at the same level as her before Shenwu Zuyan could complete his breakthrough to divine extinction realm. For her beloved, Shenwu Zihua could give up everything and do anything including venturing over 70 times into the endless fog. It is clear that she is a stalwart, unwavering, maybe even ruthless woman. What I'm saying is that Shenwu Zihua was far above Shenwu Zuyan in every way, be it in terms of talent, cultivation, personality, willpower, and mobility. On the other hand, Shenwu Zuyan only has two advantages, his background and his divine essence. Some men would be beyond thankful to have a woman like her and willingly drown in her devotion like a baby. But there are also some men who would feel only suffocation and loss of dignity from it. This is especially likely if the man is of high birth. Take her 77 excursions into the endless fog to aid him in becoming a half-god, for example. Everyone around them thought it was a beautiful tale of love, but to a divine son like Shenwu Zuyan, there could only be two outcomes. He would either be so grateful to her that he swore to never betray her love for eternity, or he would view it as the greatest shame of his life and loathe it like it was poison. Clearly, Shenwu Zuyan was the latter. Knowing this, the divine consort he chose to favor must be the opposite of Shenwu Zihua in every way. She would be a woman who could draw out his protectiveness at first glance and was dependent on him in every aspect. That's why I said what I did earlier. I see. Meng Jiangxi nodded in understanding. It is exactly as you predicted, Brother Yuan. The new divine consort hailed from a collateral branch even more distant than Shenwu Zihua. If we look at her background alone, one must squint real hard to say that she was qualified to be a divine consort. So, Xianxia asked, how did Shenwu Zihua react? Meng Jiangxi answered, well, it was said she suffered a mental breakdown and wept uncontrollably, but Shen Wuzuyan was unmoved. In fact, the divine regent blasted her off stage for fear that she would do something extreme during her loss of composure. Later, Shen Wuzihua accepted the marriage and remained as devoted to Shen Wuzuyan as ever. She remained willing to give him everything and even treated the new divine consort very well. She said that she was fine not being Shen Wuzuyan's wife or even his concubine. All she asked was that Shen Wuzuyan not push her away. What a terrifying woman, Yun-Chi thought inside his head. To his surprise, Li Xiu immediately responded with a thoughtless outburst. "You of all people have no right to say that, Lady Killer." Try as he might, Yun-Chi could not mount a retort. Unaware of the inner dialogue, Meng Jiangxi continued. Shen Wuzuyan was aware that he was in the wrong in this matter. Although he still wasn't willing to anoint Shen Wuzihua as his divine consort, he treated her much better than he used to. Combined with the fact that Shen Wuzihua's devotion had seemingly never changed, she, in a sense, was the person both Shen Wuzuyan and the former divine regent trusted the most. There was no longer any need to listen to the tale. Yun-Chi interrupted. Long story short, Shen Wuzihua intercepted the divine origin while Shen Wuzuyan was in the process of accepting the true god inheritance, am I right? That's correct. Meng Jiangxi sighed deeply. At the time, Shen Wuzihua was easily Shen Wuzuyan's strongest and most trusted profound practitioner. Naturally, she was selected to be his most important protector. Shen Wuzihua had loved Shen Wuzuyan since they were children. Not only that, she had risked her life countless times for Shen Wuzuyan and even abandoned her right to have an official status with him. In everyone's opinion, she was the last possible person to hurt and betray him. SER letter 1D04H, the NOVYL letter 192, IREN. ET website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Yun-Chi scoffed on the inside. Once you had hurt someone deeply, you could accept his hatred, but never his show of goodwill whether it was real or not. I don't think anyone outside the eternal night kingdom of God knew what happened during the inheritance ceremony. Only the final outcome was known. Shen Wuzihua intercepted the divine origin and artifact of inheritance and forced the divine origin into herself. Father guessed that she originally intended to destroy Shen Wuzuyan's inheritance ceremony and turn her blood into his eternal shadow. But to everyone's surprise, the divine origin did not take her life. In fact, it was astoundingly compatible with her even though she only had 70% divine essence. Still, it came at a price. Her lifespan is much shorter than normal, and her eyesight was permanently lost. Not long after that, Shen Wuzihua became the divine regent and changed the kingdom's name to Eternal Night Kingdom of God. She herself changed her name to Shen Wuyanai, loathing the night. Although she had only just inherited the divine origin. Although she was nowhere close to subsuming the divine origin at the time, no one in the entire Eternal Night Kingdom of God could suppress Shen Wuzihua. Such was the power of a true god. Shen Wuzuyan's downfall must be quite something, wasn't it? Yun-Chi remarked sympathetically. Indeed, Meng Jiangxi answered. It was said that Shen Wuzuyan's immediate relatives were either dead or crippled. Looking at the results alone, those who were dead got very lucky. It was because Shen Wuyanai later announced that all men are slaves, and no men, no matter who they were before her ascension, had any dignity since. They couldn't even run away because anyone above the divine extinction realm would be planted with the eternal night death wishing mark. Anyone who dared to rebel or escape would suffer a fate worse than death. A man had hurt her so badly that her heart and soul were torn asunder. So, her hate encompassed all men under the heavens. She buried her hatred deep within her heart until she finally dealt a fatal blow to those who trusted her the most. That was why she no longer believed in loyalty. Her personality had long since been warped by absolute hatred, and perhaps forcing her unworthy self to bear the power of a true god had further warped her. As a result, the lightless divine regent became an exceedingly tyrannical and violent existence in the eternal night kingdom of God. In fact, it looked like becoming the divine daughter of the eternal night kingdom of God was unlike any other kingdom. The absolute opposite. Yun-Chi asked suddenly, "Say, do you think that Shen Wuzuyan is still alive?" Meng Jiangxi thought for a moment before answering. It was rumored that he died several thousand years ago. His ashes scattered to the wind. But I personally believe that he is still alive. Love and hatred are two sides of the same coin. If Shen Wuzuyan died, then Shen Wuyanai's fervor, while impossibly fierce, would have burned out eventually. Therefore, I am inclined to believe that Shen Wuyanai hasn't killed him. In fact, She would shut off any avenue for him to commit suicide and do everything in her power to keep him alive. Only then could she torment him for eternity. Yes, Xianxia nodded. I agree. That is why women are much scarier than men when they go crazy. For an instant, he could not help but think of Hua Kaylee. His expression froze for a moment, but he pressed on. Considering how much Shen Wu Yanai loathed men, it seems unlikely that she would accept male consorts. How is she planning to handle the eternal Night Kingdom of God's inheritance? Hua Kaylee once said that it took both a sufficient amount of divine essence, a divine extinction realm cultivation at the minimum, and a corresponding bloodline for one to accept the inheritance of a true god. The nine profound, exquisite body was an exception. Meng Xianxia answered, You are right. The lightless divine regent has never allowed a man to approach her, much less anoint a male consort. In fact, this generation's godbearer was found while scouring the Shu lineage. The previous divine daughter, Shen Wu Qing, was found from the direct descent of the Shen Wu lineage. She was born with 80% divine essence, and she was brought before Shen Wu Yanai not long before she was born. Shen Wu Qing was a silent, rule-abiding woman who rarely showed herself before anyone. However, she later violated a taboo of the lightless divine regent. She fell in love with the previous divine son of the owl-butterfly kingdom of God, Pan Bueng. She was locked up by the lightless divine regent as a result. During this time, the lightless divine regent found a second divine daughter named Shen Wu Yi, the current eternal night divine daughter. It was said that Shen Wu Yi hailed from an extremely distant collateral branch of the Shen Wu lineage, but no one knew exactly which branch she was from. In any case, the lightless divine regent immediately abolished Shen Wu Qing's title after Shen Wu Yi appeared. Xianxia said, Considering the urgency of the decision, this Shen Wu Yi is probably a 90% godbearer at least. I think so too. After that, it was rumored that Shen Wu Qing was executed for violating the taboo last year, and the executioner was none other than the newly anointed divine daughter, Shen Wu Yi herself. Meng Xianxia sighed. Shen Wu Qing and Pan Bueng, both of them were abolished. One of them was cruelly executed, and the other fell into such despair that he would rather choose to fall into sinking dream. It's a good thing you sent him away. What a pitiful pair of lovebirds they were. Is there really nothing else about Shen Wu Yi? Xianxia asked. Meng Xianxia thought. There is a strange rumor that I believe is 100% false. Tell me anyway. Meng Xianxia answered. The rumor claimed that Shen Wu Yi was only a peak divine master when she was taken in by the lightless divine regent. However, just 20 years later today, she is already a level 5 divine extinction realm profound practitioner. Xianxia, Meng Xianxia shook his head smilingly. This is impossible, of course. The boundless divine son, Xianxia, took 2,400 years to ascend 7 minor levels in the divine extinction realm. Today, he is the undisputed greatest divine son of the current generation. In the previous generation, the sword fairy Hua Qingying spent only 1,000 years to complete the divine extinction realm and enter divine limit realm. Such was her talent that even the Pure Land said this. If there is anyone in this world who may transcend mortality to become a true god, it can only be Hua Qingying. With that in mind, to say that anyone can go from peak divine master to the middle stage of the divine extinction realm in just 20 years. Meng Xianxia felt like every breath he spent talking about this rumor was an offense in itself. There's just no way such a monster could possibly exist. I do not know where the Xuanji Hall obtained this rumor, or why they decided it was worth keeping. Xianxia thought for a long time before changing the subject. Does the Xuanji Hall collect information regarding the dragons as well? Meng Xianxia was puzzled, but he didn't ask why Xianxia wanted to know. He simply answered, Abyssal dust eats away at the beasts far more than us humans. The fact that the dragons aren't extinct yet is a testament to their strength. Even so, survival is all they can focus on. That is why we rarely pay attention to them. As such, the information we collected about them is mostly repetitive and useless. Xianxia asked, There is a woman named Long Jiang among the dragons. Does that remind you of someone? Long Jiang. Meng Xianxia thought for a moment before exclaiming in realization, You mean the scar-faced dragon girl, Long Zai. In fact, I do remember a report stating that she addressed herself as Long Jiang during one of her excursions. Scar-faced dragon girl? Xianxia lowered his gaze and inhaled slightly. The reason she got the nickname, Scar-faced dragon girl, is because of the terrible abyssal dust scars on her face. Meng Xianxia snuck one look at Xianxia's face, and immediately started scouring all relevant information inside his head. Then he slowed down his speech and said, Longzai is a very special existence among the dragon race. In fact, she isn't one of their descendants. The dragons found her by accident while the dragons were outside the mountains. Apparently, she was just a 5 to 6 years old girl when they found her. Xianxia. She was brought back to the dragon race because she boasted the aura of the ancestral dragon, but no one claimed her as their child when they asked around. Eventually, it was believed that she was a mixed blood between an ancestral dragon and a human. How is her life with the dragons? Xianxia asked. This was the question he was most concerned about. Xianxia thought for a moment and gave him a clear answer. Although she is a mixed blood, Longzai's status in the dragon race is extremely high. One would even say she was special. She is adored by the ruler of the dragon race, the one they call the Dragon Lord. Not only did he bestow her a personal territory of her own, he strictly forbade anyone from offending or bullying her because of her foreign bloodline. No one is allowed to enter her territory or even greet her without permission. Why's that? Xianxia asked, almost subconsciously. It's simple, because Longzai's profound talent is exceedingly high. Xianxia used the word exceedingly without any hesitation. It was difficult for dragons to reproduce to begin with, and their cultivation speed is far inferior to that of humans. In fact, the ancestral dragons only had one junior this generation, and his name is Long Wangchu. Despite investing the dragon race's greatest resources in him, he just barely entered the divine master realm at the age of 360. That said, Long Wangchu has been suddenly improving by leaps and bounds in the past 60 years or so. He is now 480 years old and a late-stage divine master. Everyone's guessing that he is awakening some sort of innate latent talent. Xianxia continued. As for the collateral branches, there are only a handful of them that are worthy of mention. That is why Longzai's profound talent astounded the entire dragon race when it was first revealed. According to the rumors, Longzai was extremely reclusive even when she was at a young age. She was unwilling to make contact with anyone nor accept any resource from the dragon race. Despite this, she was able to become a divine sovereign at the age of 11 and a divine mazer at the age of 15 via her own effort. It was such shocking news that the Dragon Lord left his secluded cultivation prematurely. To become a divine master at the age of 15 without relying on any resources, it made Long Wangchu, the guy who took 180 years to become a divine master despite enjoying the dragon race's greatest resources, look like absolute garbage. Xianxia sighed in admiration. To reach divine master realm at the age of 15 without relying on any high-level resources is no small feat. Forget the dragon race, she would have been a legend even in the kingdom of God. At the very least, you and I are no match for her. This is why the scar-faced dragon girl is well known even among the kingdoms of God. I heard that her scars appeared when she was 15? Xianxia asked slowly and calmly. Xianxia frowned a little and spent a long time trying to recall the memory. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, you're right. According to the intel gathered by the Xianxia Pavilion, Longzai was astoundingly beautiful even when she was just a prepubescent girl, and countless dragons were drawn to her like bees to honey. Long Wangchu especially begged the Dragon Lord to bestow him Longzai many times. Bang! A crack suddenly appeared on the tea table Xianxia was resting his hand on, and Xianxia's voice cut short. Xianxia lifted his hand and gave him a small smile. Sorry, I'm at the brink of a breakthrough, so sometimes I can't quite control my profound energy. Please continue. Xianxia lowered his gaze and continued in the same tone as before. As Longzai's talent is so high that it astounded the entire abyss, the Dragon Lord naturally wished for a union between her and Long Wangchu. And as you said, that is the year she suddenly gained a pair of horrifying scars. It also scared Long Wangchu into forgetting his desire for her. Brother Yuan, are you suspecting that Longzai went so far as to destroy her own face, just to fend off her suitors? Xianxia did not say anything, but he also didn't deny it. Xianxia thought for a moment, but could not accept his logic. But all women naturally value their countenance. Girls in particular view their beauty more importantly than their own life. Besides, Long Wangchu is the only direct descendant of the ancestral dragon. In the future, he is certain to become the next Dragon Lord. If Longzai attaches herself to him, she would have become the Dragon Queen and enjoy the pinnacle luxury of the dragons. To say that she went so far as to destroy her face just to avoid becoming the Dragon Queen, it just... doesn't sound logical to Meng Jiangxi at all. The corners of Xianxia's lips twitched into something resembling a twisted sneer. Not even the loneliest, youngest phoenix would ever fall in love with a village chicken with bright feathers. Meng Jiangxi paused, as if something was caught in his throat before moving on as if nothing had happened. If that is true, then the scar-faced dragon girl truly is one of the fiercest and most vicious women I've ever heard. You mentioned that Long Zai was treated very well in the dragon race. So despite her rejection, the Dragon Lord did not get angry with her or force her into submission. Xianxia asked as calmly as ever. But the only thing that was calm was his voice. As far as I can tell from the intel we collected, yes, Meng Jiangxi declared with certainty. The Dragon Lord has lived for a very long time. He is mild-natured and broad-minded. If Long Zai really destroyed her own face, he might even feel guilty for asking her about this. In fact, some more believable rumors claimed that the Dragon Lord had openly wanted to adopt Long Zai as his daughter in public many times, though he was rebuffed every time. The fact he is so desperate to adopt Long Zai at least proves that he is fond of her beyond measure. Naturally, he would treat her well. Also, a believable rumor stated that Long Zai's territory was almost a forbidden zone open to none but herself. Due to the Dragon Lord's strict order, no one dares to enter it without permission. This is clearly more evidence of his fondness for her. Also, I have never heard of her being bullied or rebuffed by the dragons despite her mixed blood. In fact, she is the one who treated all dragons like strangers. It is why everyone in the dragon race viewed her similarly and stayed a long distance from her. One more thing. 4 days ago, a strange wind suddenly blew at the ancestral dragon mountain range. It seems like someone has entered the divine extinction realm, but the commotion was far greater than your usual divine extinction realm breakthrough. Assuming it really is the phenomenon of a breakthrough, whoever the half-god was must be astoundingly talented. I personally believe it is Long Zai. Meng Jiangxi stopped there. The dragons were the only beasts left in the abyss, and they rarely made contact with the outside world because they were too busy surviving. Naturally, the 6 kingdoms of God had few reasons to pay attention to the dragons. The fact that Meng Jiangxi knew about Long Zai to this extent was a commendable trait. It showed just how much effort he put into realizing his ambitions in the past century. It was too bad that Xianxia appeared out of nowhere and crushed them ruthlessly. As an intelligent man, Meng Jiangxi gave many answers but asked very few questions. Xianxia did not press him for more answers either. Suddenly, Xianxia asked a completely unrelated question. Divine Sun Zai, have you heard of a woman with the surname Xia in recent years? The location doesn't matter. Xia, Meng Jiangxi thought for a brief moment before shaking his head. I've never heard of this surname. Got it. Xianxia nodded and rose to his feet. Starting now, I want to be updated on every divine child's activity as soon as possible, all of them and no matter how minor the change is. Do not hesitate to report to me at any time. If I am cultivating, pass the message to Lu Leisheng. He will inform me about it when I finish. From Meng Jiangxi's point of view, Xianxia was officially inserting himself as the Dreamweaver Divine Son. He immediately replied, I understand. Don't worry, Brother Yuan, be it verified or unverified rumors, I will transfer it all to you. I'm sure you'll be able to determine their validity yourself. Very good. You may leave. After Meng Jiangxi was gone, the fake calmness Xianxia had been wearing this whole time finally cracked. He closed his eyes and let out a deep, murky sigh. Although the horrifying scars on Long Zai's face remained lodged inside his heart like a pair of poisonous thorns to this day. At the very least, her life in the dragon race was peaceful and sufficiently luxurious. It felt as if much of the burden and worry in his heart had disappeared without a trace. I'm strong now. I can already protect myself. And I even found a way to wake Mother up now that I don't need or want any support. You just had to timely appear. I also don't hate you. If Mother wants to see you again after I save her, I won't stop her. But before then, please do not bother us, because the only thing you bring is disaster. Treat it as me begging you. Long Zai's calm yet heart-wrenching words had replayed inside his soul countless times. Long Zai, my daughter, please treat yourself well. You're right. I am drowning in myriad tribulations and disasters right now. If I approach you by force, I will only disturb your peace and bring you untold disasters. I won't let you wait too long, though, even though you've never waited for me or expected anything from me. You are Shen Zai's and my daughter. The scars in your heart and the scars on your face, one day I will heal it all. At the very least, I hope you will give me the chance to make it up to you. I hope I can one day hear you call me father from the bottom of your heart. Dragon race, I have heard of your benevolence to Long Zai. When all is said and done, I will repay this favor 10,000-fold. The abyss must be destroyed, but even so, I swear I will do everything in my power to ensure your survival. Time passed slowly amidst the constant flow of abyssal dust. Before you know it, a year had passed since Xianxia arrived at the Dreamweaver Kingdom of God. It was also the most chaotic year the abyss had witnessed in recent years. This was especially true for the lands of the living bordering the endless fog. To say that the atmosphere here was anomalous would be an understatement. And why was that? Because a monarch had appeared in the endless fog? No, scratch that. A monarch who ruled the endless fog since time immemorial had deigned to show himself. His name was the Fog Monarch. At first, when the name Fog Monarch was first spoken, everyone thought that it was a pathetic trick by some audacious scum. Whoever did it must be in a hurry to dig their own grave, they all thought. Each time the Fog Monarch showed up, however, he would cause bigger and bigger waves outside of the endless fog. Legend has it that the Fog Monarch could manipulate abyssal dust and control abyssal beasts. He could even cure the absolutely incurable malady known as abyssal corruption with the flick of a finger. The legends kept growing more and more ridiculous, exaggerated, and hilarious. But slowly, surely, more and more people found themselves unable to laugh at the rumors anymore. It was because the Fog Monarch kept appearing, proving that he wasn't just some legend cooked up by some insane sinner. More and more people saw him with their own eyes every day. It was an experience that completely overturned what they knew of the world too. Once abyssal corruption entered the heart, the victim could not be rescued. This was common sense for everyone living in the abyss. In fact, abyssal corruption was easily the main cause of death in the abyss. 90% of people who died in the abyss died because of it. Most of the beasts went extinct because of abyssal corruption as well. The appearance of the Fog Monarch tore this knowledge asunder. As more and more victims who absolutely should have perished to abyssal dust were rescued by the Fog Monarch, the scornful laughter turned into suspicion. And the suspicion turned into hope, in fact. Since 10 months ago, a large number of people bearing abyssal corruption or those carrying friends and family and beloved who were doomed to die to abyssal corruption would appear at the edge of the endless fog. They would search for the endless fog and beg for his appearance, so they might receive his legendary blessing. Then 2 months ago, the Fog Monarch appeared and cured over 1,000 people of abyssal corruption in the span of a few breaths. S.E. a small cap R letter 1D04. H the N-O circumflex letter 1D20, E fire. ETA it website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Search the novelful.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality.